Return of the Mac. Return of the Mac. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. You lied to me. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.
I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
All right. Happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. I am back from my B-Day weekend. I hope you guys had a great weekend as well. So welcome to Sab's podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sab's podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show, which will be back this week. And you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and every other Sunday. I want to give a shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. And welcome back, fam. I've missed you guys. I did have a really great B-Day weekend. I went to New York. I got to do some pretty cool things. I went to see the Barbie's World, Barbie exhibit. That was a lot of fun for me. It's like old times. I did also get to see the Friends exhibit, which I've been meaning to do. I wanted to see it here in Boston, but it was a pop-up and I didn't make it in time. Whereas in New York, it's a staple. It's not a pop-up, right? So that was a fun experience too, to actually like walk on like, they recreated the set of Friends. So you get to go through Monica's apartment, you go through Joey and Chandler's apartment, and you also, it's interactive. So there are certain things you have to do depending on which scene that you are a part of. So that's a fun experience. I do say if you're in New York, check that out. That's pretty cool. And you can also go to the cafe, the Central Perk Cafe that was in Friends. You don't have to go through the whole experience to do that. If you just want to just go to Central Perk, you can go to that and you can order. Like you can get like coffee. I got a green tea there. And it's all recreated. It's really cool how they were able to do that. And it really brought me back. So That was a lot of fun. Got to hang out with some people. I got to meet in person, finally, Professor Zinkus. It was great to hang out with him. Also, shout out to Big Mad Crab. He was there as well. So was Case Study QB. That wasn't my first time meeting Case. I hung out with him before. And of course, friend of the show, Roger Meadows was there. That was a fun time. So sometimes, it's good to just go hang out and have a blast. But now I'm back. I'm back, bitches. And we have a lot to discuss, a lot to talk about because quite a bit happened while it was gone. If you didn't get a chance to do so, make sure you check out on Monday. I did upload 2 videos. Those were not a part of a live stream to catch up on some of those stories there. So check that out. Tonight's theme, ladies and gentlemen, is It's All Coming Back to Me Now. I know. It was a song by Celine Dion. Pretty popular song, pretty cool music video, but it's also pretty, I would say, important when we talk about tonight's stories. When you hear tonight's stories, ladies and gentlemen, you will say to yourself, it is all coming back to me now. And maybe you can channel your inner Celine Dion. I don't know, but you can figure it out. First and foremost, let's give shout outs to people in the chat. What is going on, fam? Totally missed you guys. So much to discuss. Shout out to Cheer, says, I can't wait for class to start. Keep doing your damn thing, Sabby. Thank you so much. Greetings, John Doe. The Brianna Bowman interview was pathetic. Dude was so defensive and egotistical. Once some people get a taste of power, they lose their soul. It's like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Well, it's an interesting conversation that we're going to get into tonight. Shout out to Brian says, whenever I see Carville in his Louisiana get-ups and think of his Clinton ties, I can't help but remember that Barry Seal was whacked in Louisiana and that he operated from Clinton's Arkansas. I remember that. Shout out. Greetings, Tim. Sabby Bowman pissed me off talking to BRIE. You hear me? LOL. I was screaming the whole time. These people are ops. He ain't trying to change shit. Capping for the Dem party. Also, don't forget your YouTube plaque. Yes, I still have to hang that up. I will get nails this week. This week, I will get them so I can hang that up because I keep forgetting. I see a lot of people had things to say about that interview. I actually appreciated that interview, and I'll tell you why. We'll get into that discussion. Thank you, Kerpoof. Someone commented on BRIE's video, thanks for clearing up any lingering respect I had for Jamal Bowman. Damn. Greetings, CBC voters, says happy Tuesday, Sabby and Eric. Shout out to New York Varsity. Oh, Sabs, you missed it. Aaron Mate knocked Shmuley the F out. Called him a Nazi. Wild. I'll have to check that out. I haven't seen that. Greetings, Larez. Hey, Sab, Eric, Corey, and RBN fam, Dem voters, liberals, etc., who I know are still blaming me for Trump's election. You too. I say I'm disenfranchised in California as a non-Dem voter because of the Electoral College. Still, they blame me. It's really interesting, too, because, some people blame me, and I'm like, I didn't vote for Trump. I didn't tell you to vote for Trump. I voted for Jill Stein. I told people to vote third party. And it's interesting, too, because I run into that same situation where, dude, I live in Massachusetts. What do you... what was your issue? And then if they really point fingers at the swing states, then they can't avoid Michigan. And then you would be pointing your fingers at Arab American voters. And you really can't tell them to go vote for the people who were killing their people. You just really can't. That's how I see it. Daves, hello, Sabby. This is very bad news for President Trump. If we have a recession, the Democratic Party believes that Americans will vote Democratic in huge record numbers in 2026 and 2028. What say you? I don't know. I mean, the economy was bad under Biden before the midterms, and people kept saying there was going to be a red wave, but there wasn't a red wave. I mean, the Democrats still were able to win. So I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. Shout out to Hannah, says Sabby is back. I am. Greetings, Crom, says happy Taco Tuesday, Sabby. Hello to you as well. Greetings, Kimi, says good evening, Sabby fam. Good evening, Eric. And of course, our hostess with the mostest, Sabby. Let's roll that beautiful doobie doobie doo music. Shout out to Kill Your Egregors. Good times and better tacos. Shout out to Cloudness says, smash the like. Happy Taco Tuesday, Sabby Sabs. And greetings, Randy says, JB was on forever today. Good stuff. Yeah, I caught part of JB's stream, and here's JB's here, says, that's my jam. What is going on? BRIE says, yo, Return of the Mac. Yes. Yeah, I know, right? Like, I love that song. I don't know what he's saying for most of it, but it has a really good beat. And it takes me back. It takes me back. Yeah, good stuff, guys. Good stuff. All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, the theme tonight is It's All Coming Back to Me Now. And Celine Dion tried to tell us about this at one point in time. And here we are. Here we are. We're going to go ahead and start off by giving a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. What is up, patrons? Thank you guys so much for your support. I really do appreciate you, fam. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories. Five. Ultimate, Sabinators, Sabsters. Roll that beautiful bean footage. There is Sabbies, of course. Don't forget about those Sabbies. They're pretty cool. Yeah, I know it. And we also have a group called Members. Thank you guys so much. Really do appreciate you. All of their names are listed here. And believe it or not, you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. Thank you so much. I want to give a shout out to new Sabby patrons on here. We call them newbies. Shout out to JJ and Ann Chaz 26. Thank you so much. And welcome to both of you. Hey. Well, let's get into it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, what are we discussing tonight? We actually have 6 stories for you tonight. Quite a bit to get into. Like I said, it has been an interesting week for news. Tonight, we are discussing, if you haven't seen it, honey, we're going to get into it tonight. Brianna Joy Gray and Jamal Bowman square off. Yeah, this is a big one. This is a big one, ladies and gentlemen, because Jamal Bowman is having this interview with BRIE, right? Who was a part of the Bernie Sanders campaign. BRIE was also a part of Force the Vote. Jamal is no longer in Congress, and he also already had an interview with Ronnie Akalik, and now you see he's having this interview with Brianna Joy Gray. And there are some moments where it got a little heated, but there's definitely parts we want to discuss there. We're also going to discuss Trump recession. What is happening to the economy, and are we headed towards a recession? What does Trump have to say about this? What do the numbers show, and how can that impact you if that were to happen? We're also discussing, if you didn't see this is another crazy one. Piers Morgan pushes James Carville. James Carville, the guy who used to work with Bill Clinton, who said not to go in the direction of progressive policies, that would be bad, stay away from these far left ideas, said that Kamala Harris was going to win. Now he's saying in a different tune, and he actually has some criticism here for the Democratic Party. We're going to get into all of that. Crazy things happening right now in New York. Cops harass protesters. These are the protesters that are calling for the release of Mahmoud Khalil. We're going to get into an update about that story. I already covered it earlier on Monday, but we're going to get into some updates and about that letter, that petition that is going around in Congress, and who signed it and who didn't. We're going to get into all of that and what this means for your free speech rights. We're also going to discuss the blue state exodus. Why are people fleeing blue states? We're going to get into that, the economics, the job market, and we have a bonus story, and this one's kind of wild. Donald Trump is trying to remove Thomas Massie, which a lot of people are not happy about, and I think that is a huge mistake for Donald Trump. We'll get into all of that as well. So, if you haven't had a chance to do so, folks, start us off right by smashing that like. And the theme tonight is It's All Coming Back to Me Now. It is. We're going to get started with this first story here about the economy. So if you've been paying attention, you probably noticed the economy is not doing well. Now we are starting to see the stock market is starting to reflect that as well. The Dow has fallen 900 points. 900 points. Are we headed towards a collapse? What does this mean in the grand scheme of things? And what does Donald Trump have to say about this? We're going to get started with this clip here from Morning Joe. Of course, they dived into this as well. Check this out.
Of course, Washington buzzing about the question Donald Trump didn't answer.
Yeah, well, he isn't ruling out the possibility that the United States could head into a recession this year as his economic policies cause uncertainty on Wall Street. Take a listen.
Are you expecting a recession this year?
I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition because what we're doing is very big. We're bringing wealth back to America. That's a big thing. And there are always periods of, it takes a little time. It takes a little time. But I think it should be great for us. I mean, I think it should be great.
So as Joe showed, the front page of the Wall Street Journal this morning reports on how investors rattled by the threat of trade restrictions and a slowing economy are now turning to a classic defensive play, dividend stocks. And with Americans remaining concerned about inflation and the looming threat of tariffs, consumer confidence fell sharply last month, the largest 1-month drop since 2021. Meanwhile, layoffs among U.S. employers in February were up 245% from the month
of February. Let's pause here. We'll pause it right there on the job market. I hate to say I told you so, guys, that we were heading in this direction. Now, what's interesting to note here is part of this has to do with the tariffs, which I did forewarn you about. I told you that those tariffs on Canada and Mexico would impact us here in the United States. So part of it has to do with that. Part of it also has to do with the fact that despite what this next clip is going to tell you, the economy was not great. They're saying that the economy was great when Donald Trump came to office. That is not the case. The economy was not great. It was better than it was a year ago, but it wasn't in the best shape. But this is what I've been sounding the alarm about. Like when the Dow drops like 900 points, this is serious. When you see this report here that the U.S. has announced job cuts, it surged to 245%. That is serious. Regardless who is president at that time, our economy is having a problem. Now, I talked about the job loss under Biden's presidency. I'm talking about the job loss under Trump's presidency. I talked about the stock market fall under Biden. I'm talking about the stock market fall under Donald Trump. I talked about the economy under Biden. I'm talking about the economy under Donald Trump. Now, I know many are going to say, well, he just got there, give him time. I get that. But you have to understand that some of this is because of the tariffs. And we're going to go to another clip here that gets into that a little bit, where they show you the numbers. You need to see the numbers that the stock market is reflecting. Check this out.
Okay, let me start with what's happened overnight. Meltdown is the only way to describe what we've seen in the U.S. markets overnight, as recession fears are back and they've gripped the street. The Dow plunged nearly 900 points overnight. You've had the NASDAQ down 700 points, 4% in a painful session of trade.
We got to pause here. NASDAQ, for people who are not familiar, that's tech, right? All of us use technology. So that there's a hit there in the tech sector as well.
Look at the futures. I want to pull up Dow futures just for a second at least and see where we're going after that huge hit on U.S. markets. I mean, we can't take much heart from that, 55 points in the green. Treasury yields have also slid as recession fears grow, the 10-year at 4.16. Crude has slumped on tariff fears. Brent is below $69 a barrel. I mean, you would think all said and done, cheaper crude, yields coming off, good for India. But the reasons is what's worrying, which is why you're going to see a negative on the implied open as far as India is concerned as well. So
that's the crude oil. Remember, I warned you about what would happen with oil?
Now the question is, what are these recession fears that seem to have come in the last 48 hours, and where are they coming from? So let me break that down for you. First, what the White House has said on the market crash, because there was actually a statement coming in. And the statement from the White House is, we're seeing a strong divergence between animal spirits of the stock market and what we're actually seeing unfold from business and business leaders. Let me break that down to you for what it actually means. It's essentially that what the stock markets are doing is reactive, but it's going to be good for business. The start of all of this is an interview by US President Trump to Fox News, where he was asked specifically, do you think there's going to be a recession? And he says, I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition because of what we're doing is very big. Now, that's a statement that has sparked off all the fears. And we told you about this in yesterday's show as well at the same time, that this statement that we're going through a period of transition is something that the street is not liking. It was actually echoed in a way by something that the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, also said. And he described it as a detox. He says the market and the economy have just become hooked. We've become addicted to this government spending, and there's going to be a detox period. Now, call it a transition, call it a detox, call it panic, what you will. The screen is only showing pain at this point.
Yeah, only showing pain at this point. And let me break this down a little bit better for you guys. So basically, to make a long story short, Donald Trump said that he cannot rule out that we will not have a recession. Right. And that caused alarm for a lot of people, not just in the media space, but in particular on social media. Right. People are like, what are you talking about? Right. So part of this is because of the tariffs. But his idea is that people will feel pain for a short period of time, and then we'll be back up on the upswing because the jobs will come back to the United States. So here's my answer to that. If you want manufacturing, and in particular, those manufacturing jobs here in the United States, you would put that in place before you were to take this route, because there's no guarantee that by doing this, that these jobs are going to come back to the United States. There's no guarantee in that. I think that's what he's hoping would happen, but there's no guarantee. In the meantime, people who are poor, people who are low income, they're feeling the pain. I don't know when was the last time you guys went to the grocery store, but I was just there yesterday. The prices are high. They're still high. They're still high. The prices didn't decrease. I don't know why people, all of a sudden, some people stopped talking about the high grocery prices as if this isn't a thing anymore. The prices are still high, right? So we do have this issue. We do have this problem. Now, I mentioned that because when I get to this video here, this young woman that is on MSNBC, she is going to paint a different picture. She's going to tell you that the economy was great when Donald Trump came into office. That's actually not true. We've been complaining about the grocery prices for the longest time. Listen to this.
Weeks into Trump's second term. What's your take? How is the U.S. economy?
Trump inherited what was actually an excellent economy. Whether or not voters recognized it last November, we had very low unemployment, cooling, if not cool enough, inflation, strong GDP growth. We were, hopefully still are to some extent, the envy of the world. And the best thing Trump could have done for this U.S. economy is just nothing at all. It's like,
pause. So a couple of things that I take issue with what she said. No, the economy was not great when he took office. The eggs were still high. The grocery prices were still high when he came into office. That didn't change. If you guys have been paying attention, these grocery store prices did not decrease. like the prices have still been high, right? So you can tell like who can afford to pay higher prices and who can't. You can tell the people who don't have to look at the price of something, they can just purchase it. And there are people like that. When you look at a lot of these people, especially a lot of the ones that come on MSNBC, CNN, a lot of these people, they can go to the grocery store and they don't have to look at the price. They can just grab items and put them in their grocery cart and then just pay when they get to the register. The rest of us have to look at prices. I'm just keep it real. And we try to go with the lowest price possible if we can, or if it's still too high, we just don't get it. And I grew up that way, right? I grew up that way, even though my family was in the military, and the military does pay for a lot of things. When I went grocery shopping with my parents, they still had to look at prices. So that's the reality. to the second part that she mentions here was just leave it alone, right? That's kind of a slap in the face to people who are lower income, right? Because what she's saying is, she said he shouldn't do anything, so nothing should have been done for working class people. So you have, once again, both parties still failing the working class. Now, what does this mean for us, right? Let her go on a little bit more here.
Go play golf and let the trends continue as they are. Instead, he seems to be hell-bent on sabotaging it. I mean, whether or not he recognizes that that's what he's doing, that is what he's doing. I have argued for years that presidents get too much credit when things are good, too much blame when things are bad. They get too much responsibility. They don't control the economy. It really feels like Trump is single-handedly trying to disprove me by doing undertaking all of these policies that are very detrimental, whether we're talking about raising prices through tariffs or raising the tariffs and suspending the tariffs and raising the tariffs again and again, which creates more uncertainty, which makes it almost impossible for businesses to make investment decisions, or other kinds of sabotage, things like threatening to deport large chunks of critical labor forces in agriculture, for example, picking fights with the Federal Reserve. All of those things are bad for economic stability, verging on, potentially dragging on economic growth and raising the threat, I will say, not definitively dooming us to recession or stagflation, but certainly raising the threat of those outcomes.
You do.
So here's the thing I want to bring up as well. And I tried to tell people that this would be an issue. And JB calls it out here. Professor Richard Wolff said that a recession happens every 4 to 7 years. Our last one was during the pandemic. So we are on time for a new recession. Trump is not making it better with tariffs either. And that's the part. And thank you so much for saying that, JB. That's the part I really wanted to drive home here, because we are due for another recession. So whether Trump won or Kamala won, it was inevitable. It was already leaning in that direction. Now, when we talk about these tariffs, though, I told you that it would impact us here in the United States. I warned you that the cost of things would increase. It's just a reality. Now, Ontario, I want to bring this up here. They have now decided to back off this, but they were threatening a 25% tax increase on electricity exports to the United States in response to Trump's trade war. And this is one of the things I tried to warn people about. Again, they just backed off of this, but this was a threat that they were, putting our way. Ontario's premier, the leader of Canada's most populous province, announced that effective Monday, it is charging 25% more for electricity to 1.5 million American homes and businesses in response to Trump's trade war. They provide electricity to Minnesota, New York, and Michigan. So this is another thing, what I said before, right? Which is that, and here's him here, which is what I said before. People don't realize just how much we get from other countries, how much we get from Canada, how much we get from Mexico. And luckily, he decided to back off of this. But if this were to happen, that means that you would now see a higher utility bill. And I don't know about you guys, but this past winter, utilities have been extremely high. In fact, in Massachusetts, utilities have increased since the war with Ukraine. And they've continued to increase. I know one person in particular, I'm not going to say their name because they probably don't want their name out there like that. But I know one person in particular lives in a 1-bedroom apartment here in Massachusetts, and their utility bill has been $400 a month. That's what the heat kept at minimum. Everything went up. So imagine if he would have gone through with this. Luckily, he's not, thank goodness. But if he would have gone through with it, imagine how that would have impacted you. I don't know about you, but I don't want a higher utility bill. I don't want higher grocery prices. They're already high. So I said it before, the tariffs, not a good idea. Yes, it looks like we could be headed towards a recession. And all I can say to people is to just buckle up, buckle up, because when I warned people about this, I've been talking about this for the past couple of years about how the prices were continuing to increase. And it's all coming back to me now that here we are again, And some of the people who didn't say anything under the Biden administration when the prices were higher, or their response was that voters just don't know how to read prices, apparently. Voters don't understand what's happening right in front of their face. Now that Trump's president, now they're calling it out. But when we had price increase under Joe Biden and we had unemployment issues under Joe Biden, they made excuses for it because that's their party. So again, what we have to understand is when it comes to economics, regardless if it's Republican or Democrat that's in power, everybody can look at prices with their own eyes and they can tell if the price is increased or not, damn it. So hopefully we get out of this mess and we do not head towards a recession, but that job loss number is very concerning. And we had job loss increase under Biden's presidency as well. And I'm starting to see a trend. Biden was in office for 4 years. We're in another administration and we're still seeing this issue with the job numbers. So that's a problem. Let's go to some of the comments over here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, John. Do you think Bill Maher will wish for a recession so Dems can win in 2026 and 2028, just like he wished for a recession so Donald Trump would lose in 2020? I wouldn't put it past Bill Maher because here's the thing. He's rich and a recession isn't going to affect him the way that it would affect the average American, right? So, Tim, you heard about Nebraska going bankrupt because of the lack of immigrant work, Sabby. I did hear about that. I did warn people about that if you didn't have something else in place, that's what you would be facing, right? Nebraska, there's a lot of farmers in Nebraska, so that didn't surprise me. Thank you, Marlon. I declared my independence. I feel good. Da-da-da-da. I knew that I would. Now I'm a registered independent. That's what I'm talking about, Marlon. That's what I'm talking about. I want more people to change your voter registration to an independent. That's what I'm saying. Like, declare yourself independent of these parties, for real. Shout out to Marlon for doing the damn thing. Alan said they don't care about the poor. No. Reginald, Sabby, if you're in the American military, it's below poverty and most personnel were receiving food stamps. It depends on the rank. I mean, my family didn't receive food stamps. Like we didn't. I was also an only child for a long, long time. It was a while before, I got a sibling, and it depends on the rank. So keep that in mind as well. Thank you, New York Varsity. Under Biden, they said inflation was down, but at the same time, groceries were up 22%. What happened then? The price of a BMW went down $5,000? I know, right? Thank you, Trusting Success. Proof the economy was bad. Trump won because his campaign focused on bettering a trash economy. And JB says a looming recession plus Doge trying to change Social Security spells disaster. Yes, it does. Again, we have to ask ourselves, who are they looking out for, right? They're not looking out for the working class at this point in time. All righty, folks. Thank you for hitting the like button if you've done so. We're going to move on to another story here that I think is getting a lot of news, and I have updates about it because I want you to think about something. Do you consider yourself to be pro-free speech? And I ask that question because I'm seeing a little bit of contradictions. Because I'm seeing that some of the same people on social media that supported the January 6th protesters, etc., are against supporting Mahmoud Khalil. And what is happening to Mahmoud Khalil is a violation of the First Amendment. It is a violation against free speech. And that's how I want you to look at this. I don't want you to look at this from the lens of whether or not you agree with the pro-Palestinian protesters. Put that to the side and think about free speech, because that is what is at stake here. Now, I covered this story on Monday, so just a quick overview and we'll get into the updates. If you did not hear about this, ICE arrested a Palestinian activist who helped lead Columbia University protests, right? So Mahmoud Khalil was arrested by ICE. And Mahmoud, this is what's the interesting part about him. He was detained by the Department of Homeland Security, and he apparently disappeared. That was coming from his lawyer. They approached him. They detained him. Apparently, his wife, who is, from what I understand, 8 months pregnant, they basically told her they could arrest her too if she didn't step back out of the way. This is happening because Donald Trump, and apparently also Marco Rubio, is heavily involved with this. They have made it their duty to go after protesters that participated in, and specifically those college encampments. The message that has been put out is that if you participated, they're basically calling you a Hamas supporter, thus a terrorist supporter. They are saying that you're anti-Semitic. You see how they're conflating all of this? People who said they want a free Palestine and they want the genocide to stop. Now, all of a sudden, they are calling these people terrorist supporters. So that's where this comes from. And it appears the first arrest is Mahmoud Khalil. He was detained by ICE. And from what his lawyer is saying, she has no idea where he's at. They have no way to get in touch with him. None at all. The importance about this particular situation is that Mahmoud was not here on a student visa. Mahmoud has a green card. He is a permanent resident. And that brought up another question. Can the U.S. government deport permanent residents? Yes, they can. What they are using to try to deport Mahmoud Khalil is the national security threat option. Green card holders, believe it or not, can be deported. This is a common misconception. And I'm seeing a lot of people are being shocked by this now. They can be deported. And they can be deported for a number of reasons. One of them is abandoning their green card or losing their green card. Like there's different reasons, but the one that they're trying to apply to the protesters is the national security threat. That is why they are saying that the pro-Palestinian protesters are terrorist sympathizers. Because if you are a terrorist sympathizer, or if you support terrorism in some way, shape, or form, under the national security threat, that could lead to your deportation. But when we get to some of the things that Mahmoud Khalil said, you'll see that was not the case. Now, this gentleman here, eating fish burger, he's trying to use this video as evidence that Mahmoud had to go. When you see people gnashing their teeth and rending their garments over the arrest and potential deportation of Mahmoud Khalil, one of the lead Hamas acolytes at Columbia University showed them this thread of his greatest hits. So let's listen to this video. This is Mahmoud here at the encampments at Columbia University, and listen to what Mahmoud says. Listen to this.
Are you guys going to listen to the university and leave the encampment here?
Of course not. The university is the one who should listen to us. They should listen to their student body who are demanding to end their investment in the war that's happening in Palestine. Our demands are clear. Our demands are regarding the investment from the Israeli occupation, the companies that are profiting and contributing to the genocide of our people. Again, the university, once again, they are so stubborn in listening to their students. They're treating this matter as a disciplinary matter. They're not treating this as an anti-war movement that actually gathered thousands of students here. That actually sparked thousands of students across the United States.
How far are you all willing to go here on campus?
We're going to go as far as we need to pressure the university to pressure the university to divest from the occupation. This is up to the group, to the leadership of the group, to decide how far they will go. But now it's clear that the students will remain here. They will stay here until they achieve their demands.
Okay. What in that video that was shared by that lunatic, what in that video was problematic? What did he say in that where in that video did he express support for terrorism? Nowhere in that video. This is why I say this is a violation on our First Amendment rights. This is a violation against free speech, ladies and gentlemen. That's why I'm saying this. They are trying to go above and beyond to just say even the simple protest are a problem. The simple protesting, that's really what it is. And that's what they're trying to use as evidence to get rid of him. Do you guys not understand if Mahmoud Khalil gets deported? Do you not understand the floodgates that this could open? They're not just going to go after internationals. They're also going to go after Americans. They've already said that they will jail Americans. And yet, for some reason, some people are supporting this. And I say this again. If you were one of the people that said you were a free speech absolutist, if you were one of the people that said that the January 6th protesters, it was their free speech, their free expression, how could you be in favor of Mahmoud Khalil getting deported because he participated in the college encampments? And this is where I'm starting to see some of the hypocrisy, right? But luckily, the people are not buying it. They're not falling for it. In fact, there was a large protest, and there's still one today, happening in Manhattan. New York City rises up from Mahmoud Khalil, leader of the pro-Palestine student rallies on Columbia University campus, wrongfully abducted by ICE. Check it out. Awesome, right? Amazing, amazing protest there. Now, that's just one of them. And so for all the liberals who sit up here and say, how come I don't see no pro-Palestinian protests under Donald Trump? These people are liars. A lot of them are Dem operatives. There's a number of them saying it on social media. There have been pro-Palestinian protests under Donald Trump since the day he took office, and they're purposefully ignoring it or avoiding it. That's intentional. So you guys got to understand that when you see people making those statements and they say, how come there's no pro-Palestinian protests under Donald Trump? These people are operatives and they belong to occults. Now, that being said, shout out to all the people who came out to participate in the protest, and there's more going on today. But of course, as you know, there are aggressors at these protests, and oftentimes the aggressors are the police. And you will see that right here. You're watching U.S. cops attack Palestine protesters in New York right now as thousands hit the streets in solidarity with Mahmoud Khalil, kidnapped by ICE at the weekend. This is what free speech looks like in a fascist America. Fuck Trump, fuck the police. Watch this.
Get your hands off him! Get your hands off him!
So I got a couple of questions. Where were all of these police when January 6th happened? Nowhere to be found. All of these police that showed up for this protest, where were all of these police when there's real crime? Shouldn't you be out there in NYC trying to solve some crime? But they rarely solve crime, 0.02%. They're out there harassing protesters. The police who are armed and the protesters who are not, they are throwing their weight against, it was peaceful protests. This is what the police do. I've been telling you guys a number of times, and those of us who have been a part of protests, most of the time, the aggressor is the police. This is what they do with their time. This is what your tax dollars pay for the police to go harass protesters, peaceful protesters.
Big S, make space! Make space! Get in the way! Stay back! Stay back! Stay back! We're not coming out. Stay back.
Now, there were no reason to have as many police officers, and that's just a few. There were a lot of police there present at that protest, even before the protest began. Even before it began, they were all lined up. That's why I'm like, seriously? You show up for something that's not a threat, but when there is a threat, your ass is nowhere to be found. Mahmoud Khalil is an example. And whether or not you stand with the pro-Palestinian protesters or not, do you guys understand what is happening? It's not just the government. It's also the police that are trying to silence us. They're trying to silence what you have to say. They're trying to silence your freedom of expression. They're trying to quiet you. They don't want you to be heard. That's a problem for everyone, regardless of what you're protesting or if you agree or not. Now, I tried to tell people a couple of years ago, both parties support censorship. And people continue to tell me, well, no, the right is actually pro-free speech. No, people are these parties are pro-free speech about the issues that they hold dear. When it's an issue that they don't hold dear, they're not pro-free speech. And everyone has to understand that. Get that through your head. This is a problem. Next time it could be you. You may not have participated in the pro-Palestinian protest. Maybe you participated in something else. Maybe you said something that rubbed someone the wrong way that you didn't find to be offensive. Next time they could be coming for you. That's how you need to look at this. The way things are going in this particular country, this is ridiculous. So you see the police are harassing the protesters under Trump, and the police harass the protesters under Biden. I see no difference there with the police under Biden and under Trump with the protesters. I sat there with you and all of us watched these cops bash kids' heads in under Biden. So for the people who are coming on social media and they're saying like, oh God, see how these police are under Trump? The police were like that under Biden too, and they know it, but they're ignoring it because that would mean they would have to admit that the Democratic Party allowed it to happen too. Now, when we talk about our free speech, when we talk about the rights that we're supposed to have in this country, we need to be very questionable about people like Mike Johnson, and he ain't the only one. But Mike Johnson also participating in this. Mike Johnson, Marco Rubio, you think it's just Donald Trump? It's not. There are also Democrats that are on board with this. And you're going to see that when we show you that letter. Listen to this.
Yep. In your estimation, what crime did Mahmoud Khalil commit to warrant his arrest, detention, and the potential revocation of his green card?
Let me tell you something. I went face down the angry mob at Columbia at the height of that stuff. When the pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas protesters were there. I'm telling you, this is my own observation, not something I read in a newspaper. It was dangerous. I met with Jewish students before we went to campus who were holed away off campus because they were instructed by the administration not to come to class, which they paid for fear of their physical safety. The administrators there refused to take control of that campus. They refused to allow the PD to come, the police department to come in and take control. And it turned.
That's a damn lie. So Mike Johnson, I don't know who you think you can run this lie by, but for those of us who heavily covered these incidents, it's not going to work with us. When you came to Columbia, it was during the day. And at that time, when you came there, the activities that he's talking about, like the occupation of Hens Hall, that was already over. And that was over because the NYPD showed up and broke threw people on the ground, bashed people's heads in. When you came there, it was quiet and calm. So stop it, okay? Let's stop trying to act like you walked into war when you didn't. You showed up after the battle was pretty much done. Mike Johnson pretends like video doesn't exist. You can Google this and see it for yourself.
Turned into a chaos. The president has since been removed, and now they got the same problem again. Columbia and other universities, they have to keep control of campus. The first responsibility of an administration is ensuring the safety of the students who are paying tuition to be there, for crying out loud. This madness has to stop. We have to get control of it. This guy apparently was a mastermind of those very things, when the gnashing of teeth and the ripping of clothes and the people screaming at me, wanting to rip me limb from limb because I was there.
Gnashing of teeth, screaming at you is not against the law. Okay? Calling you names is not against the law.
They're talking about moral clarity and how there's a right and a wrong. They were doing that. They disrupted the campus. They were threatening physical violence to their fellow students. If you're on a student visa, I'm going to say this clearly. If you are on a student visa and you're in America and you're an aspiring young terrorist who wants to prey upon your Jewish classmates, you're going home.
Pause. Because you see, I'm about to call his ass out, right? Okay. Mr. Mike Johnson has a lot of things to say to protect a certain group, right? A group that is not oppressed in this country. He also wants to leave out that a lot of the protesters were also Jewish. They are conflating Judaism with Zionism, because you see, he don't want to say Zionists. So he's just going to say, oh, they were harassing the Jewish students, when most of the protesters were Jewish at Columbia. Where was this same energy from Mike Johnson? Mr. Mike Johnson, I have a black son, Mike Johnson. Oh, yes. You thought I forgot. Oh, no. Where's this same energy from Mike Johnson when black students are threatened, harassed, have hate crimes committed against them on campus? Where was that same energy? Where was the same energy from Mike Johnson during the George Floyd protests when black students were harassed on campus? Because you see, I worked in higher ed for over 10 years, so I remember all of these things. Where was this same energy, Mr. I have a black son, Mike Johnson? Mr. Mike Johnson, who has acknowledged multiple times that he has a black son, and he said he knows that black people go through so much more and they're not treated the same. Why don't you have that same energy when these things are done, when more harmful things are done towards black students on campus? Where are you, Mr. I have a black son, Mike Johnson? And I bring this up because I don't want you to understand. I want you to understand this. Mike Johnson is not that he cares about the Jewish students. He don't really give a shit. Mike Johnson is doing this because that's what he's paid to do. Mike Johnson takes money from AIPAC. Mike Johnson takes money from the Israeli lobby. Mike Johnson is happy about it, doesn't hide it like some. That's why he's pretending like he cares. That's what AIPAC paid him to do. For Black people in the United States, we don't have that pack. We don't have that kind of pack. You see where I'm going with this? Money talks in DC. This is why a lot of these politicians, even some of the Democrats, that's why they don't do anything for the Black community, because we don't have a pack that's making them do it. Everybody is willing to bend over backwards to protect the state of Israel. They're willing to bend over backwards to protect Zionism because that's what they're paid to do. So do not listen to this and think that he actually cares. He doesn't really care. He's a servant to it. That's what he agrees to. This is what he's paid to do. This is what I want all of you to notice, ladies and gentlemen. I want all of you to pay attention to this. Where was this same energy from all these politicians who were saying, oh my God, these kids are being harassed by these pro-Palestinian protesters, and this is crazy, and we got to lock people up? Why don't you see that same energy from those politicians when there's actual hate committed towards Black students on campus? Why you don't see it? Why do you don't hear anything? Remember that. So he's on this too.
We're going to arrest your tail, and we're going to send you home where you belong. And this is just getting started. So, look, I appreciate free speech. I used to defend it in courts, but this is far beyond the pale of that. When you are threatening your classmates and spewing anti-Semitism and all this hatred, it's enough. And I think the American people understand that. They're supporting it. And I'm glad we have a president who's strong enough to lay down the law. Thanks.
He does not support free speech. First of all, they weren't threatening people. There was no violence committed towards the people. Property and people are two different things. Number three here. Don't forget that same hall was occupied during the South Africa apartheid protests. This is not the first time that these things have happened. So the moniker that they are going with is that I'm pro free speech, except for when it comes to Israel. And if they change the definition of what it means to be anti-Semitic, then that means that any criticism of Israel, they're basically going to say, oh, that's anti-Semitic. And that's why they were trying to rush that legislation through Congress, which, by the way, I want to remind you, Democrat Chuck Schumer also approved of. That's why they wanted to rush it through, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I'm going to show you something else. Where did all this come from? Why is it that the Trump administration was able to come in and they're able to make these demands? They're like, we're going to go after these students. We're going to arrest them. We're going to deport them because they're in favor of the Palestinian people. Where did it come from? Let me jog your memory. This is where it came from. Thank you, Todd, for sharing this. Democratic leadership set the tone for this. They saw there was no real resistance from their party. So now Trump basically has a mandate to go full on fascist dictator. Does everybody remember this? Never forget that Joe Biden's fascism directly led to everything that Donald Trump is about to do. Does everybody remember this? I'm just trying to jog your memory. Biden admin says it can revoke visas of Hamas supporters as Republicans urge action. That was November 17th of 2023. Senator Marco Rubio had requested answers from the State Department. Here was Joe Biden and the Democratic Party siding along with Marco Rubio. So do you get the point that I'm trying to make, right? Gregory says, I remember. It's all coming back to me now, ladies and gentlemen. This is what I warned people about, that if the Democratic Party didn't take a moral stance on Gaza, that it would open the door for the Trump administration to do whatever the heck they wanted to. The Democratic Party at that point in time had the opportunity to take a moral position. When Kamala Harris jumped into the race, she had the opportunity to take a moral position. They decided not to do it. And when you have Joe Biden saying they can go ahead and revoke the visas of these Hamas supporters. See, everybody's a Hamas supporter now. That's how they get away with it. Joe Biden came up with it first. So if you have the Democratic Party saying you should do this, What's going to stop the Republican Party from doing it? To make things even crazy, there is a petition that was going around in Congress, and they were asking people to sign the petition calling for the release of Mahmoud Khalil. Guess who didn't sign it? Let's take a look at it. I'm trying to show you this. Shout out to King Klippenstein for this. 14 people, 14 Congress people signed the letter for the release of Mahmoud Khalil. Let's see who they are, folks. Rashida Tlaib, Mark Pocan, Nadia Velasquez, Delia Ramirez, Ilhan Omar, Jasmine Crockett, Summer Lee, Ayanna Presley, Latifah Simon, Al Green, who just got censured, Gwen Moore, Andre Carson, Nakima Williams. I'm sorry, it's hard to see that one, it's smaller. And James P. McGovern. Who do you notice is not on this letter? Guess who didn't sign it? Did anyone notice that Ro Khanna and AOC didn't sign this letter? Only 14 members of Congress signed it. Those 14 members need to leave the Democratic Party. Now, AOC's staff has come out on Twitter since this has been going around, and they said AOC has confirmed that she needs to look at the details. Details? What details? The information is readily available in front of you. That's a convenient excuse. You see this game AOC tried to play? I told you she tried to play both sides. She tried to be cool with dim leadership and still try to be cool with whatever is left of progressivism. Your comrades signed the damn letter. Ayanna Presley signed it. Rashida Tlaib did. Ilhan Omar. Jasmine Crockett signed the letter. And she's new. But you who've been there for longer than Jasmine, I got to see the details. That's an excuse. Ro Khanna, for all the stuff that he spouts about, well, we got to protect free speech. Ro Khanna did not sign this letter. Now, Ro Khanna puts out a tweet saying, what's happening to Mahmoud Khalil is wrong. We need to condemn it. I don't give a damn what you tweeted, Ro, because when it came time to put your signature to paper, you did not do it. This is a record. So it's one thing if you tweet about it and say you're against it. It's another thing if you put your signature to it, boo. That's a stamp. Signed, sealed, delivered. What I'm trying to tell you is this. The majority of Congress members didn't sign it. Now, you don't expect the Republican Congress members to sign it, but the majority of Democrats didn't sign it because the majority of them take money from the Israeli lobby. Didn't sign it. 14 people care about free speech. 14 people in Congress care about the First Amendment. And this is why I continue to say that there is no path for progressivism through the Democratic Party. This is why I continue to say that those people are better off leaving the Democratic Party and building something on their own and make it a real challenge to the Democratic Party, whether they joined the Green Party or they started something else. Because you're not getting nowhere. And now you no longer have that narrow majority that you used to have, and you didn't use that to your advantage. So people, you can stop it with the let's try to do the progressivism through the Democratic Party. You can't get this done. The majority of our Congress members do not care about the First Amendment. Does everybody seriously understand that? And this is why I continue to say we need to throw those bastards out. And you have to have something new. This is why I say it. Because Mahmoud Khalil, it could have been you. It could have been your friend. It could have been your brother, your sister, your mom. It could have been someone close to you. You never know how far they're going to go. This is an attack on our First Amendment rights. And I don't give a damn whether you agree with the protest or not. If you're pro-free speech, you should be speaking out in favor of it. And when you look at that statement from Joe Biden, him wanting to do the same thing, again, it's all coming back to me now. Now, here's a way that you can fight. There is an organization called TAG, Taxpayers Against Genocide. Roger Meadows, thank you so much for reminding me of this. We interviewed them as a panel on Revolutionary Blackout Network a couple of weeks ago. Taxpayers Against Genocide. Do yourself a favor. When you get the opportunity, go over to Revolutionary Blackout Network and watch this live stream called Tag Joins. Because what they are doing is they are suing because their taxpayer money was used in this atrocity and they did not approve of it. And honestly, I've been telling you guys before, I think the way to go about this is suing people. Sue their pants off. It's your money. Think about it. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, hey, hey. Thank you. Thank you, BK. Isn't registering green more of a threat to power than registering independent? It all depends on where you live. I mean, for some people, depending on your state, you can't register as a green, right? So that's one of the problems that you run into, like with New York State, for example, what they did to third parties and all that kind of stuff. In some states, you can't register as a green. You may have to register as an independent. That's why I say independent. Thank you, T. Marshall, for the super sticker. Dwayne, Mahmoud Khalil is no supporter of violence, 100%. Thank you, Marlon. Congress shall make no law that infringe on free speech or has the Constitution been changed in secret meetings. Yeah, that's another one too. That's in the Constitution. Thank you, Mark. The police are just like the IDF. Jaden, Sabby, do you think Tim Walz could be the new Bernie? I don't know. I noticed Tim Walz has been speaking out against Kamala Harris's campaign quite frequently recently, actually. I don't know. I will say he has passed some of those progressive policies in his state, right? Like he signed some of those. I think he would have to answer to some of the issues that he had with the indigenous community. I think he would have to answer that, but I don't know. Thank you, Janice. When is the military going to hold the oath they take? Hold the oath they take, I think you mean. Military has an oath to defend the Constitution from foreign and domestic enemies. But that's the thing. They'll tell you that Israel is not considered an enemy. They say Israel is an ally. So that's the problem we 1 and 2. Oh, thank you, Janice. Uphold, stupid autocorrect. Thank you. Thank you, Dwayne. Mike Johnson is more loyal to Israel than the Constitution he swore to uphold. Yep. Thanks, Courtney. They're not bending over backward for AIPAC. They're just plain bending over. Thanks, Kevin. Hi, Sabby. Do you have a vid talking about your experiences during the Floyd protests? I'd be very interested. I might. I don't remember. That was a long time ago. I'd have to check. I know I did a couple of vlogs back during that time. Like I know I did one of the Bernie rally and stuff like that. I'd have to check. But I can tell you about them. Thank you, Baron. The U.S. is no longer free or sovereign country. It is occupied territory. I hear you with that one. And thank you for the super sticker, Louise. Thank you so much. It is all coming back to me now, ladies and gentlemen. Let me go ahead and respond to this because people, they come in and they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Elias says, Sabby, you're nothing but a hypocrite because you legitimize people like Candace Owens, who's done nothing but hurt the Black community. She's done fundraising for killer cops and degenerate Black people. Okay, so first of all, I just posted a video today talking just about that. So here you come. I said I agreed with Candace on Gaza and I agreed with her on ending the Ukraine war. So here you come with all this shit, not knowing what you're talking about. I have criticized Candace Owens about her position with the Black community on this channel multiple times. You don't know what you're talking about, but it's really suspect considering I just posted a video today about that. Do some research, do better. Moving on. We are going into the next story, ladies and gentlemen. Now, this one is really interesting. Piers Morgan and James Carville. Oh my God. So it's all coming back to me now, ladies and gentlemen, because remember when Biden was still in the race, James Carville did say, I don't know. I don't think this is going to be the person. I don't think that that's what the voters want. And then Kamala Harris became the candidate. When Kamala Harris became the candidate, James Carville said she is going to win. I have no doubt in my mind she's going to win. That's what he said, right? Now James Carville is eating his words, and he ate those words with Piers Morgan. So you know Piers Morgan really got a lot of thrill and joy out of this. Let's dive in here.
Gave that debate. And it became crystal clear to Americans who were watching in large numbers that all the rumor mill that had been dismissed largely by the mainstream media, that Biden was somehow cognitively impaired, he wasn't up for the job, etc., that all those rumors that had been roundly denied by the Democratic establishment actually were laid bare as being a cold, hard reality. Where were you when that debate happened, and what were you thinking as it took place?
I know exactly where I was. I was in Aspen, Colorado, with Tina Brown's Aspen Ideas group. And I went back to the Jerome Hotel, and I turned on the TV, and it was 3 minutes into the debate. I watched 3 minutes, I took 2 gummies, and I started listening to country music because I knew this thing was not going well at all.
No.
It was too painful to watch, but I can show you that to this day. I could walk back to the room I was in the hotel, and I texted the director of the documentary, and I told him I'm taking 2 gummies and watching country music. This is too brutal for me, even me to watch.
Did you know in that moment, James? Did you know in that moment that he was not going to be the candidate come the election?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of us probably assume that, right? When he said gummies, I'm assuming that he's talking about edibles. He said, I took 2 gummies. I'm assuming, I don't know. But yeah, it's really interesting. I think during that debate, that was the moment that a lot of us just realized, like, well, some of us were saying it earlier on. We're like, yo, this dude is not the one. He's got to step aside. But that debate was an eye-opening moment for people who maybe weren't paying attention to politics just yet, and they weren't like focused on the presidential election. And then seeing that debate, they're just like, whoa, what happened to Joe Biden? Because a lot of times people tune out, right? Like people may pay attention as we get closer to like election season, but in between those times, people may tune out from politics for quite some time until presidential election comes back. So I think it was eye-opening for people who weren't in the know.
I mean, it was pretty evident. There's a new book coming out. Read it about what people do and when did they know it. I don't know. I called on President Biden not to run for re-election even earlier than May of 2023. Can argue. I think he's one of the more consequential presidents we've ever had, frankly. And it was might have been the single most painful thing I've ever done in my life. I cannot wait to get in the morning and just kick the living crap out of Donald Trump. It just gives me joy, pleasure. It brings a smile to my face. I hate it every moment, but I just didn't think I had another choice, honestly. And so that's where I am. It's kind of weird, but Trump being elected in some ways kind of freed me.
I mean,
now let's talk about that for a second. This is funny. James Carville, the Cajun Skeletor. Thank you, Professor Black Truth. Everybody calls him Skeletor. This is the part that I want to chime in on. He said that Trump being elected kind of freed him. You know why he's saying that? Because he knew all along that they weren't going to win, but that wasn't his role. So when he was asked, like before the election, is Kamala Harris going to win? Of course, he's like, oh, yeah, I think she's going to win, because that's his role. That's what he's supposed to do. He's not supposed to get up there and say, no, I don't think she has a chance. No, it was a Democrat strategist. He worked with Bill Clinton. You think he's going to get up there and say she doesn't have a chance? No, not at all. And that would have been bad on him. And you wouldn't see him being like invited onto any of these more shows or whatever. So in other words, these people are paid to lie. They're paid to make you believe that they have momentum, that they have this energy around them and that they're going to win so that you feel inspired to come out. But sometimes that backfires because sometimes if you kind of don't feel like it, and let's be honest, sometimes people don't feel like it. If you don't feel like going to the polls, standing in line for however long you have to wait, depending on where you live, then you might kind of hear on the news that's like, she has all this energy, this momentum, she's going to win. Oh, okay, well, I can just stay home then. That's the other side of that. If they feel like it's going to be that much of a win, some people may say, well, I'm just going to go ahead and stay home.
People say that you were an instrumental part in persuading Biden to stand down. It's pretty clear that he didn't want to do that. Is it true that you were one of the leading drivers for him to stand down? Did you talk to him yourself?
No. Speaker Pelosi and Leader Schumer, and I'm positive as a result of people in the caucus said, we can't do this. We're going to get slaughtered. And they went to the White House. Their message, like you would expect, was not particularly well received. And I'm quoting publicly. And President Trump tells, which has got to be the title of a book, okay? He says that Mike Donilon's polling says we can win. She said, get Donilon on the phone. I mean, if that woman might be the toughest, most courageous person I've ever been around in my life. I mean, I don't love her. I love her, and I'm totally intimidated by her. I just think she's just wonderful human being. But I think that was when, it was the equivalent when Barry Goldwater went down Pennsylvania Avenue.
Yeah.
Now, the only thing I would fault of Speaker Pelosi and Leader Schumer, they were both friends of mine. What took you so long?
Right.
Not that you did it, but, we should have done it, ifs and buts. But it was clear after that debate. I was in a room with 60 Democratic donors that morning.
So,
and it was just brutal.
Listen to who he was around. Not everyday normal people. He was in a room with Democrat donors, just hanging out with the donors, the donor class. And this is who they were getting advice from. This is who they were listening to. The people who are deciding whether or not they want to invest their money into this reelection campaign. That's who he was hanging out with. Think about that.
And you could see that and I said, just call and say, no mas, no more money. That's it. If you do something different, we're not going to fund this disaster. And I think had a part in it. Yes, when when Hakeem or people, Schumer would call these donors, wanting money, and they said, I'm not giving you any money. I think that gets people's attention. And I did play a role in that, yes.
I don't always pick the healthiest food up.
Sorry, I just realized I was muted. We're going to jump forward past this because we don't really care about his ads. And I want to get into this part where they talk about whether or not the Democratic Party actually wants to win. I thought this was very telling.
He benefited himself from a few things. One, the assassination attempt, where obviously he was nearly killed. And he reacted in a way that was surprising, I think, even to those who knew him well. The show of defiance, the fight, the arm raised, I think was a very powerful symbol for him and certainly would have been very, I think, influential in a lot of American minds, even if they didn't like him. They thought, you know what, this guy, he's a fighter. He showed courage literally under fire. Secondly, and I think you may question this, but what they've called the lawfare campaign against Trump, it wasn't so much the more serious stuff against him. It was the fact the first thing they took him to court over was such a pathetically trivial case, Stormy Daniels, and shuffling a bit of paperwork about a one-night stand 18 years before. For that to be the first time any American president had been taken through a criminal court and to then convict him over it, I felt was a catastrophic strategic failure. What was your view of that?
Well, let me take what happened. You're right. The Butler event, he showed real strength there and is kind of what he was. So he had that. We had a catastrophic debate. We had a catastrophic nominating process. We nominated a person who actually turned out to be a little bit better candidate than I thought, which, you know, I wouldn't think is going to be that much, who actually did favor taxpayer-funded transition surgery for prisoners. Okay, right. If you asked me to come up with something more unpopular than that, right. I'd say, Piers, you got to give me about 30 seconds. All right.
Yeah. But he didn't say that at the time. See, everybody's coming out now. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but there's a slew of Democrats that are now coming out to criticize Kamala Harris's campaign. I guess enough time has passed and they are given the okay to do that. So it's not just James Carville. None of these people said this during the time when Kamala Harris was running. They said she was running a great campaign. They said she was doing such a great job. Now he's saying what he had a problem with. But you didn't say that at the time.
And we lost by 1.5 points. Right? Anybody else, I could tell you 5 people that would have won this election easily, even under those circumstances. It's like if the country wants something different, tell them you're going to give them something different. I tell them, you know, and it's not disloyal. And people say, well, she's a very loyal person. I agree. Loyal to who?
Right.
If you're loyal to Biden, are you loyal to the party? Are you loyal to the voters? Are you loyal? I mean, when you say someone is loyal, okay, who are you loyal to?
She was loyal to Joe Biden, which is why she didn't want to fully break away from him. But again, at that time, you didn't say this, James Carville. You had nothing. None of this stuff came out during that time. You were fine with what she was doing. You didn't criticize Kamala Harris's campaign at that point in time. Now he's saying if the country tells you that they want something, you know, tell them what they want to hear. Give them what they want. That doesn't mean actually do it, by the way. He doesn't mean actually do it. Just tell them what they want to hear. That's what he's saying, right? But James Carville was one of the people who heavily smeared Bernie Sanders' 2016 and 2020 campaigns. And Bernie Sanders' campaigns was the people telling him what they want. That was what the people wanted. Now, there are other things that should have been added to that. And I said this before. I think that Bernie Sanders should have had a reparations plan. I think he should have had a black agenda. I think he would have done a lot better in South Carolina if he had that. Probably still wouldn't have won South Carolina because I know how James Clyburn can be. And I lived in South Carolina. But you knew that the platform that Kamala Harris was running on was not what the voters wanted, and you supported it anyway. And you told people that she was going to win, and you didn't have these critiques and this criticism of the campaign at that point in time. They really believed that it was just enough to not be Donald Trump. If it was just enough to not be Donald Trump, then Joe Biden wouldn't have been trailing him. And Donald Trump wouldn't have been ahead by like 400 electoral college votes, which is what the internal polls showed if Joe Biden would have stayed in that race. That right there should have told you that the people were wanting something different. This part right here, where they get into Dems would rather lose. This part's important.
For what reason? And, you know, it's in the title. There's a lot of Democrats. I can't believe these people exist, but I can assure you they do. They would rather lose on principle than have to compromise and win an election. And
did you hear that? Let's hear it one more time. I actually believe this part. I think he's being very honest here about this.
You know, and it's not disloyal. And people say, well, she's a very loyal person. I agree. Loyal to who?
Right.
If you're loyal to Biden, are you loyal to the party? Are you loyal to the voters? Are you loyal? I mean, when you say someone is loyal, okay, who are you loyal to? For what reason? And, you know, it's in the title. There's a lot of Democrats. I can't believe these people exist, but I can assure you they do. They would rather lose on principle than have to compromise and win an election. And there's a word for these people. It is idiotic.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I've seen.
Everybody take notes. What have we been telling you? Now you have a Democrat strategist saying the same thing we've been telling you for years. It's all coming back to me now. Remember how I told you that they would rather lose to Donald Trump than adopt a platform that is going to uplift working class people, poor people, low income people, than adopt a populist platform than to have a black agenda? What did I tell you? They would rather lose to Donald Trump and hope that Trump would be so horrible that the people would run back over to them again next election. The Democratic Party, since 2016, has been running on "we're not Trump." When you go back and you look at even Biden's campaign in 2020, it's not like Biden had this robust policy platform. He was running on the soul of America, and he was running on "I'm not Donald Trump." Now, what helped Joe Biden at that particular time was the pandemic. Because we had the pandemic and the lockdowns, and people lost their jobs and people lost their businesses. A lot of small businesses here were done after the pandemic. By the time those PPE loans rolled out, it was already too late for some people. So the economy was a disaster because of the pandemic. And I argue, and I've said this over and over again, had it not been for the pandemic, Donald Trump would have won re-election in 2020. Because prior to the pandemic, the economy was doing really well. And that's what a lot of people care about. That's just a reality. Now, do I think that he would have, I don't know. Do I think it probably could have been close? Probably could have been somewhat close, because I know there were people that had issues with his rhetoric over the immigration, deportations, and the kids in the cages and all that stuff. Funny, though, because those people became very quiet once Biden was in office and there were still kids in cages. I didn't hear them say anything about it under Obama when he built those cages. This is going to show you people all over the damn place. But the reality is, since 2016, the Democratic Party has been running on "we're not Trump." This is why when Kamala Harris was announced as the nominee, what was it, like 30 or 40 days that she didn't even have a platform? They didn't really think they really needed one. They were just running on "they're not Trump." Since 2016, the Democratic Party hasn't planned to do anything for you. That's the part I really want to drive home. They're not really trying to do anything for you. They're not really trying to help you. They're not really trying to make any changes or anything like that. They're simply running on "we're not Trump." It's 2025. It's been almost 10 years. They ain't really offered you a damn thing. And had it not been for the pandemic, you don't get that American Rescue Package, which also didn't go to everybody. Because if you didn't have kids, you didn't get a child tax credit. These are things I want people to really think about. What have they done since 2016? Obama can at least say, "I got you guys Obamacare." And there are criticisms about Obamacare. Yes, it does need to be improved. I think we all can agree that it didn't cover everybody. It's not universal health care. I would want universal health care. But the reality is, at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, the Democratic Party ain't done shit for you in a long time. So a lot of people had a Janet Jackson moment. What have you done for me lately? And so that's why some people decided to walk away. That's why some people stayed home. Last time the minimum wage was increased was under Barack Obama. But everybody's got things to say now. Interesting. All right. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you. Where is the love? Bye, Elijah. Thank you, Luis. You have always been legit in your critiques of Candace. Trolls be trolls, SMH. I know. And with the crazy part is, I'm like, you picked today of all days when I posted a video about just that. Crazy asses. Thank you, Kenman. Carville is missing a chromosome. Thank you, John McKinney. Just curious, have you ever read Catcher in the Rye? If so, what do you think of it? And what did you think of Holden Caulfield? We read it in school. That was a long time ago. I don't even remember much of it, but I do remember we had to read it in school. If I don't remember a lot about it, that probably means I wasn't as interested. Thank you, GDNPB. In a maladjusted war society, a man of peace is the worst you can be to the powerful getting wealthy. These are the same people that would be letting Barabbas go. And JB says they'd rather team up with fascists than support what workers want. Bingo! Ding, 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 ding. There you go. Good points. All right, guys, go ahead and do me a favor, do me a solid and smash that like button. Kapow. And if you've already done so, thank you very much. Quick announcement, and then we'll get on with our other stories, ladies and gentlemen. We are doing a mutual aid event. During this time, a lot of people are running into issues with the groceries. I told you guys the grocery prices are still high. So the Boston Mutual Aid chapter that I'm a part of, we are fundraising for a grocery gift card giveaway. So shout out to my peeps at the Boston Mutual Aid chapter. We've been doing, really good job. This is our first one for this year. The grocery gift card giveaway. And I thought I updated this. I don't know why this isn't changed. But it's going to be March 29th. I updated this picture, but for whatever reason, I guess Spot Fun Link just doing whatever. Anywho, we are giving out these gift cards. They're grocery store gift cards. It'll be Stop and Shop grocery store gift cards to 15 families, right? So it's 15 families. And I can go ahead and read this part for you guys here that have already been selected. Oh, wow. We already got some donations. Well, damn. Thank you. The goal is $1,500. We already have 305. So thank you so much to those who donated. Boston Mutual Aid chapter is raising funds to donate grocery gift cards to 15 families in need due to recent changes with SNAP. Some families need help purchasing groceries. Our goal is $1,500. The donation event will take place. And again, I got to update this. This is March 29th. Please help donate what you can. Help out if you can, guys. Again, the problem that people are running into, even those that have the SNAP benefits, is that because the grocery prices, again, are continuing to increase, people are seeing $10 eggs. It's ridiculous. So we did have 15 families that are in need, that do need help. And we're going to give each of them, the goal is to give each of them $100 gift card. We were going to do grocery bags, but then we were like, then we'd have to pick foods that we know they like. And it's probably just better for us just to give them the grocery store gift card so they can go get what they want. But we have done grocery bags in the past for like the pancake breakfast and all that type of stuff. So help us out if you can, you guys. I'd really appreciate that. And I'm sure they would appreciate it as well. And shout out to all of my peeps that are part of the Boston Mutual Aid chapter. Again, this is our first event for this year. And if you want to donate, here is the link here. Oh, you got it there, Eric. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. If you follow me on Twitter, it's also shared on Twitter as well. Thank you. Okay. And I know some people ask like another way to send this out. My newsletter, it'll go out via my newsletter tomorrow morning. So you'll have that link there as well, too. So, yeah. This next story is a good one. Okay. It's getting kind of juicy up in here, but it's something that everybody needs to hear. And I think you guys really appreciate this. When talking about the economy, I think it's important also to address the fact that there are some states in this country that are rapidly losing residents. And for whatever reason, those happen to be blue states. But what I want to show you tonight is that it's not just about a blue state. It's about a metropolitan area that has a lot of people, and they have a lot of people because of the job market. And I'm going to sound the alarm about the warning when it comes to the states that people are leaving and the states that they're moving to. Now, things are coming back. It's all coming back to me now. A couple years ago, I warned people about this. Even last year, I've been warning people for quite some time that if we don't get these costs under control, you're looking at a lot of these coastal elite blue cities looking like some type of exodus or just becoming a playground for the rich. And that's where we're headed. And you'll see why. Shout out to Yvette Carnell for sharing this video. This is a really good video. States governed by Dems losing residents because housing is too expensive really drives home the party contradictions. I agree 90%. Glad Dems are finally getting called out for their failures. Let's get into this, guys. The mass exodus of blue states. Check this out.
Democrats have a problem that runs deeper than the 2024 election. They have a problem that runs deeper than Elon Musk's assault on the government. Look at the places they govern. Strongholds like New York and Illinois and where I'm from, California. They're losing people.
Since the pandemic started, California is seeing an exodus, a mass exodus.
In 2023, California saw a net loss of 268,000 residents. In New York, 179,000.
New York City is losing some folks, right? Some residents. But it turns out that New York State is also seeing the population drop.
And in Illinois,
Illinois residents have been fleeing the state at an alarming rate.
The state's population has been in decline for the 10th year in a row.
Why are all these people leaving?
Pause right there. One of the states that's not mentioned that should be mentioned is Massachusetts and also Washington State. They are also in that, expensive category. Illinois is less expensive than those other ones, but Illinois is also hella cold. And also the taxes did increase in Illinois. I know a lot of people have been complaining about the tax increases, people that have left Chicago. So there's that as well. What these areas have in common is that, yes, they are hella expensive, and they also have a problem with gentrification. And that's kind of happening all over. But what you've seen over time is that people that grew up in working class or low income communities, they are no longer able to maintain their families there because a Whole Foods came in, a developer came into the neighborhood and said, let's make this a nicer place to be. So now the rent that they were used to paying, it quadruples or doubles, and they can't afford to stay there anymore. So they have to move out. Now that low income neighborhood has now become, like a yuppie neighborhood. And you got all the tech bros that live there. Boston has this issue here in Massachusetts. DC has had it. Chicago, California, we can bring up LA, more in particular, San Francisco, and that tech bubble, right? New York City, we know has had these issues. That's part of the reason, but there's more. Listen to this.
In surveys, the dominant reason is simply this. The cost of living is too high. It is too expensive to get childcare.
It's almost like paying another mortgage.
It is too expensive to buy a home.
Very unrealistic to be able to put a down payment on a $2 million home with 2 kids surviving.
You end up having to live too far from your work. And so they're going to places where all of that is cheaper.
Every day, someone is moving to the Florida area.
She got an apartment 3 times the size of the one she had in Manhattan. Plus, there's a wraparound debt.
Yeah, I can definitely understand.
Go get that, 4-bedroom, 3-bath house I had in Texas.
I know these families. These families are my friends. I've lived with them in these places, and I've watched many of them move away from the place they love, the city they wanted to raise their children, because they could not afford to live there. You cannot be the party of working families when the places you govern are places working families cannot afford to live.
That is right. And they're not the party of working families. The Democratic Party has become the family of, the tech, bro oligarchs. They're the party of Goldman Sachs. I mean, Kamala Harris said this all on the stage herself, happy about the Goldman Sachs endorsement. That they're become the Ivy League, elite, bubble party, that type of thing. And no, that is not supporting working class families. That's not supporting. Hell, I know teachers that can't afford. How much you think they pay some of these teachers? Do you know there are teachers in this country that are making $30,000 a year? Teachers have a college degree. Think about that for a second. So people are underpaid, but you're wondering, well, why did they go to those areas to begin with? Those areas weren't always as expensive as they are now. The other problem that you run into is the job market. When I graduated from college, a lot of people moved to a couple of different places. And those places were Washington, D.C., because they had entry-level jobs for college students where you could just get it like that and they trained you and you're working for the federal government in some way, shape, or form, doing some kind of damn job in D.C. So there are a lot of people that took that path and you knew you were going to get good benefits working for the federal government. Washington, D.C. was one. New York City was another one. See, these cities all have stuff in common. Boston, so maybe if you were already in the Northeast, but at the time it was New York, DC, some people would go to Houston, like that type of thing. But there were certain areas where the job market was really thriving and it was really hot. Now what happens is you have a metropolitan area that has an enormous amount of people because of the job market is part of the reason, but you end up with this problem because you have so many people, you have a higher demand for housing. So if the demand for housing is higher, the price is going to increase. That's where some of that comes in. We are seriously heading down a dangerous path where San Francisco was no longer home to working class people anymore, where you had to have 4 and 5 roommates just to have an apartment. We're going down a dangerous path when Oakland doesn't even look like what it used to look like back in the 80s or the 70s. And a lot of the Black population has been driven out because they can't afford to live there because the tech bros came in. And that is spread to places like San Jose. It's not just San Francisco. It's not just Oakland. It spreads. You see it here in Massachusetts. It's not just Boston. It spread to Cambridge, Somerville. People used to call Somerville Slummerville. Somerville now is expensive. And these things have increased over the years, so it spreads. So instead of moving to a different city in that state, people are leaving these states and they're moving to states where the cost of living is cheaper. That's also going to be a problem in the long haul.
You are not the party of working families when the places you govern are places working families cannot afford to live. In the American political system, to lose people is to lose power. If these trends hold, the 2030 census will shift the Electoral College sharply to the right. The states that Kamala Harris won in 2024 will lose House seats and Electoral College votes.
Yep.
The states that Trump won will gain them.
Yep.
So in that Electoral College, a Democrat could win every single state Harris won in 2024 and also win Michigan and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and still lose the presidency.
Everybody needs to see that. Because when people move, a lot of times they take their experiences and their frustrations with them. If you left the city because it was too expensive and you're moving somewhere cheaper, you're probably going to take that energy with you. And the new place you're moving to, whether it's a Raleigh, North Carolina, which is also starting to become more expensive, whether it's Raleigh, North Carolina, or Austin, Texas, or Nashville, or whatever, you might be a little bit more open to a different style of politics because you don't want what happened in New York to happen there. This is an alarm that he's sounding, and I feel like a lot of people need to be talking about this.
There is a policy failure haunting blue states. It has become too hard to build and too expensive to live in the places where Democrats govern. Our politics is split right now between a left that defends government even when it doesn't work and a right that wants to destroy government even when it is working. What we need is a political party that actually makes government work. Democrats can be that party. They should be that party. But it requires them to confront what they have done to make government fail.
This is where I disagree with him. Democrats can't be that party as long as they're taking corporate money and they're attached to lobby interest groups. They can't be that party. The Democratic Party that he's speaking of existed a long time ago. That party does not exist anymore. So unless the Democratic Party is willing to forego these corporate donors, lobby interest groups, they're not going to lean back towards the working class. Right now, you see the video that I made before about the centrist third way. Their future plan for the Democratic Party is to move away from left and populist politics, which they didn't really embrace in the first damn place, except for a handful of people that were part of the squad and Bernie Sanders. Let's just keep it real. To move far away from that and to move further and further to what the Republican Party wants. So they're not moving in that direction. And as long as they have that money attached, I don't see that happening.
I could tell you a dozen stories. In my new book, I do. But let me tell you here just one. In 1982, so more than 40 years ago, California Governor Jerry Brown signed a bill to study what it would take to build a high-speed rail system across the state.
Make a choice. Change the chemistry of the country.
He liked what he saw, and so did California's voters. In 1996, California formed a high-speed rail authority to plan for construction. High-speed rail is not some futuristic technology like nuclear fusion or flying cars. Japan broke ground on high-speed rail back in 1959. You can ride on these trains elsewhere. I have ridden on these trains.
Same.
So in 2008, California's voters approved Prop 1A, which set aside $10 billion to begin construction on a high-speed rail line that would connect Los Angeles and San Francisco. It would run through the Central Valley. It would get there in under 2 hours and 40 minutes.
This is important because that means that people that live in more of these rural parts of California can still have a job in San Francisco, but they can live somewhere where it's a little bit cheaper. Like someone who lives in Bakersfield, California can probably still go to work in San Francisco if you have high-speed rail. It's actually ridiculous that we don't have high-speed rail in the United States. Europe has had this for a long time. And it's true. You can jump on the high-speed rail in France and just, boom, I'm in Germany. Boom, I'm in Spain. Like, no biggie. So our infrastructure is a big part of the problem, but it's not the only problem.
And it would cost, they thought, $33.6 billion. California's High-Speed Rail Authority estimated we'd be able to ride that train by the year 2020. And the news kept getting better for high-speed rail. In 2009, President Barack Obama signed the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act into law. That had hundreds of billions of dollars to build the infrastructure of the future. And high-speed rail in particular had captured Obama's imagination.
Imagine boarding a train in the center of a city. No racing to an airport and across a terminal, no delays, no sitting on the tarmac, no lost luggage.
This was that. Look at how long ago this was, guys. It's 2025. That's how long they've been talking about this.
No taking off your shoes. Now, all of you know this is not some fanciful pie-in-the-sky vision of the future. It is now. It is happening right now. It's been happening for decades. The problem is it's been happening elsewhere, not here.
Obama wanted it to happen here. And California, where the voters had already begun planning and funding high-speed rail, was the obvious place. And the political stars had just kept aligning. High-speed rail's foremost champion returned.
And the most expensive campaign in California history.
When Jerry Brown won back the governor's mansion almost 30 years after leaving it.
Now, 30 years later, we're within weeks of a revised business plan that will enable us to begin initial construction before the year is out.
But it didn't happen. By 2018, it was brutally clear that nothing was going to be rideable by 2020. And the cost estimate, it wasn't $33 billion anymore. It had risen and risen and risen.
Well, yeah, because it was mentioned in 2008, and then we jump forward to 2018. So, of course, the cost was going to go up and go up. Now, he's talking about the high-speed rail issue, but that's not the only issue. And you can check out that full video if you want to as well. But there's something else that has been happening as well. Do you know that there are more people working from home right now than there were during the pandemic? I kid you not. This is another reason for those moves. Number one is the cost of living. Number two, I would point to this one. Work from home is reshaping the housing market 5 years after the pandemic. So check this out, guys. When I just fast forward through this part right about here, 5 years after the pandemic swept the world and ushered in the first stay-at-home orders in modern memory, remote work has changed our lives. Despite recent return to office mandates, far more Americans are working from home than before the pandemic, and that number is likely to grow if gradually over time. Let me break this down for you folks. If you're given the opportunity to work from home, do you really need to stay in New York City and pay almost $3,000, $4,000 a month for an apartment? if you're given the opportunity to work from home, you can live somewhere that's more affordable. Now, connect this to the idea of high-speed rail. If we had both, if we had high-speed rail and you were working from home, that means every now and then, if you wanted to go into the office and you lived further away, you can hop on that high-speed rail and be there just like that. Best of both worlds. More people are opting to work from home because during the pandemic, when they got the opportunity to, and not everybody, but when some of us got the opportunity to work from home, we realized just how much we could get done. We realized how shorter our commute could be. We realized how much money we saved, how many more hours in our day we got back. We realized on our lunch break, we could throw in a load of laundry. We realized that if you had children, you didn't have to worry about, I hope my train's not late so I can get to the daycare on time and not have to pay a late fee to pick up my kid. That was work-life balance. That's why some people didn't want to, and some people did choose to go back, but that's why some people did not want to get away from working from home, because they got time back and they were able to save money, thus having less stress. Now, here's the other issue. With more people working from home, we need to talk about broadband. Because there are still places in the United States that don't have broadband internet, you guys. So they don't really have that option. They can't really work from home like that. There does need to be something done with that. And I've talked about this for quite some time. Broadband infrastructure should be all across the United States right now. There's no way in hell that in 2025, there should be a town or neighborhood in this country that does not have broadband. So that demand is going to increase. That's something you want to keep in mind. But now these people who are like working from home, I'm going to leave San Francisco, I'm going to leave New York, I'm going to leave Boston, and I'm going to go move down south to a smaller town where I can maybe try to buy a home now and get away from this rat race in the city. And it is a rat race, and a lot of them. So keep that in mind. There are a number of us during the pandemic that moved out of the city because it wasn't worth it. Why were we paying all this money in rent and everything was locked down? People live in the city because of their work commute. But when they sent us home and I was working from home for over a year, I'm like, wait a minute, why am I living here? Why are we living in the city, paying all this rent and all this stuff is shut down? We can't go do the things we like to do. I'm working from home. We're just throwing money away. People have been moving to places, and I'm going to tell you the places that they're moving to. In the process, housing has changed too. Where we live, how we live, even why we make the choices we do. For many of us, very different from anything we could have imagined in 2019. The housing market observers see the pandemic as a moment of flux, which many Americans seized on to redefine their living arrangements. There really was this moment in 2020 where people really knew what was wrong with their houses. And this is Rana. She's from Somerville, which is where I used to live. And they wanted to move. In some cases, that meant a home with another bedroom. For other people, it meant a different community altogether. And then we already talked about the flexibility that comes with remote work. Now we need to talk about where people are moving. This is the National Low Income Housing Coalition report, the Out of Reach report. This is published every July. And you guys, if you're an oldie but goodie with me, you've seen me talk about this multiple times before, and you have seen this map. Every year, this map increases because every year the cost of living continues to go up. So the states that they're moving from, we talk about California. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you can see right there in California, in order for you to have a modest, by the way, this is modest, 2-bedroom rental, you need to make $47.38 an hour. You see why people leave in California? If you are making minimum wage in California, you have to work 118 hours a week to get a 2-bedroom rental. That's why they leave in California. Here's why they're leaving Massachusetts. We're second. Did you guys know that? Did you know that New York is not second anymore. Massachusetts, you have to make $44.84 an hour for a 2-bedroom rental here. If you make minimum wage, you have to work 120 hours a week for a 2-bedroom rental. Honey, I live here. I can tell you it's true. This is insane. New York is third. In New York, you have to make $44.77 an hour for a 2-bedroom. You have to work 119 hours a week to get a 2-bedroom rental home. Okay. They mentioned Illinois. Illinois is not as expensive as the others. It's 21st. It's ranked 21st in cost of living. But you have to make $28.81 an hour for a 2-bedroom rental. You have to work 82 hours a week if you make minimum wage for a 2-bedroom rental. The problem that Illinois runs into is, number one, it's cold as hell. And then number two, the taxes. Remember, a lot of people have been complaining about the tax increases in Illinois. And that's another reason why people have been leaving. A lot of times, people talk about it, but this is just the reality. And I also said Washington State. I think they should have mentioned that one too. Washington State is ranked 5th highest housing wage. You have to make $40.32 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom home rental. And you have to work 99 hours a week if you make minimum wage to afford that 2-bedroom. I've gone through so many of these states over the years, and every year it continues to increase. For those of you who live in that DC area, where my family is originally from, even if you were to look at Maryland, for example, even Maryland is ranked 9th. Like, this is what I'm saying. These places are not sustainable. Now, people point to them and they say they're blue states, but the reality is these are places that have cities that have a large metropolitan area where there's a lot of jobs there and a lot of people live there. So the more people that you have, the cost of living is going to increase because there's going to be a higher demand for housing. In particular, in places like Boston and New York City, we don't have a lot of land to work with. So when they build up. There's not a lot to work with. It's different in Texas. You have more land. But I mentioned Texas for a reason. Texas is another state, one of those states that people have been moving to. And I've been sounding an alarm about this. Texas also has a pretty decent job market. Houston, Dallas, there's a lot of jobs in Houston and in Dallas. But I'm going to give you a warning. Because you see, a lot of people from California are moving to Texas. Texas is ranked 23rd. It wasn't always ranked 23rd. I'm trying to show you how the cost of living is starting to increase even in these states that people are moving to. So in Texas, you need to make $27.88 an hour for a 2-bedroom rental. If you make minimum wage, you need to work 154 hours a week for that 2-bedroom rental. So if you see that here for Texas, okay, if this continues, and mark my words, someone can timestamp this. If the trend of people moving from California continues, of them moving to Texas, Texas is also going to become unaffordable. I know because I saw this happen in North Carolina. So the solution, which they'll tell you just move somewhere else, that'll work for the time being. But eventually, if everybody keeps moving to Houston, if everyone keeps moving to Dallas, if everyone keeps moving to Austin, Texas, which was like a fad, like a couple years ago, everybody was like, go to Austin and keep it weird. These places are going to become unaffordable too. You're just passing one to another, right? So let's look at another one here. Tennessee. This is another state that people are moving to. It is not uncommon for people from Chicago, Illinois, to move to Tennessee. Tennessee, and Nashville in particular, is ranked 29th, right? Highest housing wage. You need $24.31 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom rental. You need to work 134 hours a week to afford a 2-bedroom rental if you are making minimum wage. Now, that's not as high as some of the other places, but Sabby has a friend, one of my best friends from high school, who lives in the Nashville area moved for a little bit further out because it started to become expensive. And I'm trying to tell you, the influx of people that have moved from northern states to Nashville, Tennessee is insane. You can't go out one night and not run into bridal parties, everything. It's so different. I visited her back in 2011. I was able to walk around downtown Nashville, sidewalks, freedom, that type of thing. When I went back for her wedding and we went to downtown Nashville, I believe this was 2017, 2018. There was no room on the sidewalks. Nashville has also become very flooded. A lot of people have moved in. It's one of the fastest growing cities in the East. And mark my words, I'm trying to warn you guys, if this trend continues, that is going to become unaffordable as well. I gave people the warning about this with North Carolina. Now, Charlotte, North Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina are not cheap places to live anymore. They used to be more, affordable. It's not that way. I went to high school in North Carolina. Now that's becoming more, and follow the trends. All of the snowbirds that like to move to Florida. Florida is now ranked 10th. What's happening here? 10th. So it's not just blue states. See, this is the thing. So Ron DeSantis, hon, you running into an issue here with your state. Because a lot of people have moved there. We ain't even going to get into Hawaii. You guys know Hawaii is mad expensive. The reality is this, folks. These places have become unaffordable. And when people can't afford to live there anymore, they're going to try to move somewhere that's more affordable. And then what happens to those cities? We're looking at the possibility of these cities becoming a playground for the rich. That's what happened to San Francisco. I can see it starting to happen in Boston. Why is it that a city that has all these colleges has rent that's that expensive? So something do need to change. The exodus that is happening, it's not new. It's been taking place over the years, but it has continued to increase. And I remember the first time I talked about how people were leaving these areas and sounding the alarm that these places that they're moving to are going to increase and the cost of living is going to increase because there's an influx of people coming in. So it's all coming back to me now. When I saw that video, I'm like, this is all coming back, sounding the alarm. And then you end up with dead cities because when the people leave, it's only a matter of time that some of these jobs are going to leave. And then you look around and maybe that's how you get a city like Detroit. Detroit was once a thriving city where people had homes and people had jobs, whether they were working at a factory or whether they were hoping to work at Motown. Detroit wasn't the way it is today. The jobs left, the people left. And that's how you get that way. So if more people are working from home, what happens to some of these companies that kind of really require you to be in the office in order for them to make a profit off of the real estate? And what direction is this country going into? More younger people are moving to places like Michigan, like Ann Arbor, Michigan, or Madison, Wisconsin. They're no longer fleeing to places like Charlotte, North Carolina, or San Diego. They're trying to go to places that are cheap, but still may have something to do and have job opportunities. People are on the run. So it's something to think about. California is probably the one that should be the biggest one on your radar because that's been happening for years. And I don't know what Gavin Newsom has to say about that. I really don't. But Something needs to be done here. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gentlemen. Chantha says, stay away from San Diego. We don't want you here. And I've heard that from people too. Like, do not come here. Ian, it's too expensive to live in blue states. I used to live in New York, born and bred all my life. Yeah, New York is expensive. It's like, I'll go visit New York, but I couldn't afford to live there. And I lived there before years ago. JB, we're going through a population explosion here in Florida, but now our cost of living is skyrocketing because they're moving here. Told you guys. Jasmine, thank you for the super sticker. Brenda, right. We need more market baskets in the city, but Demoulas only goes where they can buy land. For those who don't know, Market Basket is a grocery store chain here. It's the cheapest one. Nubian Net says Oakland has black tech bros too. That's true. Skylar, the same thing happened in Southern California, especially in areas like Inglewood, Hawthorne, and certain parts of LA proper. I shudder to think about what might happen to Altadena after the fires. I've been wondering about that as well. Black Ronin says Providence, Rhode Island has the fastest rising rental cost in the country, mostly because of people moving down from Boston. And Providence is small. Thank you, Justin. There is a party for the left, and it has an awesome platform that finished in third place, even above the Libertarian Party. It's called the Green Party. That is true, Justin. Thanks, Melanie. I heard that Elon's Hyperloop thing was a scam to keep putting off high-speed rail so more people would buy cars. So many levels to this. I could see that as well. You know, it's all about money. Thank you, Troy, the good old do-nothing Democrats. Thank you, John. Ever notice how movies once hated get reevaluated? Like how George W. Bush is viewed differently due to Donald Trump. Example, Star Wars prequel trilogy equals Bush. Star Wars sequel trilogy equals Trump. That's a good analogy there. Hey, I see somebody else like Star Wars. Whoop, whoop. Thank you, Naya. Tech locations are opening in the South, but Southerners don't have the education for these jobs. Northerners and Westerners come to take these jobs. Yep. Dr. Dre. Sabby for President 2028. Oh, not Sabby. Not Sabby. Thank you, Egg. Sorry, not sorry. The tax increases here in Chicago came because the mayor and the government chose to overfund the migrants and not its own inhabitants. I heard about those tax increases in Chicago over 5 years ago, though. But thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Been to Chicago, Illinois, not much colder than Oregon. Interesting. Thanks, Troy. Your input on rent control, anti-free market. I agree with rent control, but I've been told multiple times, like we couldn't implement it right now in Boston, but there does need to be some type of rent stabilization. There's no rent stability in Boston, which means the landlords can increase the rent by as much as they want. That needs to change, you know? Thank you, China. Florida is thinking about getting rid of property taxes. Thoughts? Interesting. We'll see if that happens. Like I said, with the cost of living in Florida now increasing, I don't know. Oh, my uncle did this. Brenda says, my friend in Phoenix, an old boss, retired, could not afford to live there anymore. He relocated to Thailand and got himself a place to live and a live-in girlfriend. My uncle moved to Thailand too. I'm not kidding. My uncle moved to Thailand years ago and said, F this business. He came back to visit a couple years ago, but he was just like, screw this. I'm done with the US. Yeah. We are living in interesting times. Okay. We have a bonus story for you, ladies and gentlemen. This should be interesting to see where people stand on this one. Thomas Massie is a Republican. He's also libertarian. He's a libertarian in the Republican Party. But he seems to be one of those politicians that has found a way to get some type of, I guess, I don't know, kudos, not just from the Republican Party, but also from some on the left, because he chooses not to vote to fund wars. He chooses not to vote to fund Israel. Well, now, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like there may be a push to remove Thomas Massie from the House. And that push is coming from Donald Trump. Let's get into this, ladies and gentlemen. Can you believe it? Let's go to what Donald Trump says here first, and then we'll get to Thomas Massie's response. Thank you to the House Freedom Caucus for just delivering a big blow to the radical left Democrats in their desire to raise taxes and shut down our country. They hate America and all it stands for. That's why they allowed millions of criminals to invade our nation. Sometimes it takes great courage to do the right thing. Here comes the Massie part. Congressman Thomas Massie of beautiful Kentucky is an automatic no vote on just about everything, despite the fact that he has always voted for continuing resolutions in the past. He should be primaried, and I will lead the charge against him. Holy smokes. Okay. Yeah, man, this is not good. And Donald Trump is getting a lot of backlash about this on social media. People are not happy with this. Here's the problem, Kat. Thomas Massie doesn't vote to fund the wars. He's against that. He pretty much against increasing spending. We all know that is his thing. He's a libertarian. He's against that type of thing. That's not new. Thomas Massie, of course, voted against sending funding to Israel, not necessarily because he believes that we need to have solidarity with the Palestinian people, but because he's against spending. And again, not new. Thomas Massie is actually pretty popular. He's not just popular with conservatives, he's also popular with libertarians. He's also, even some people on the left have given Thomas Massie applause for not voting to give Israel and Ukraine money. Thomas Massie moderated the third-party presidential debates. This is stupid. Of all the people to go after, why would you go after Thomas Massie? I'll tell you why in just a second. It goes on to say here, he's just another grandstander who's too much trouble and not worth the fight. He reminds me of Liz Cheney before her historic record-breaking fall loss. The people of Kentucky won't stand for it. Just watch. Do I have any takers? Anyway, thank you again to the Freedom House Caucus for your very important vote. We need to buy some time in order to make America great again, greater than ever before. Unite and win. So here we go, bud. This is not well received. People are not happy about this one. Again, Thomas Massie is actually pretty popular and he's well liked from people of different political circles. Thomas Massie did respond here and he said, why don't more representatives stand on principle? Because telling the truth can get you in hot water. I'm going to need your help. I will run again because we need at least one person in Congress who won't cave. And then he says, can you show support by contributing? And why is it that that one person just happens to be someone that's a Republican? Why don't we have that one person in the Democratic Party that's not willing to cave? Tabitha says the people of Kentucky love Massie. Yeah, the people love Thomas Massie. I'm like, I literally saw this and I said to myself, like, Donald Trump, are you losing it? Like, what the hell is this? What are you thinking? So now the Republican Party is trying to do the same thing that the Democratic Party has done to members of the squad. Jamal Bowman didn't vote in the way we wanted him to. Get him out of here. Cori Bush, you spoke out for Palestine. Get out of here. And we've complained about the Democratic Party doing this for quite some time. They've been so obvious about this. But now we see Donald Trump is trying to get the Republican Party to do the same thing. Now he wants to primary someone against Thomas Massie, a popular congressman. Now, as I said, people are not happy about it. including someone like Tom Woods. Tom says, Donald, take the L already. FFS. All your allies with IQs above 95 are with Massey. Yeah, this is one of those ones you don't want to I don't know. You guys know how this is, right? There are certain politicians that you just don't, that people are going to come for you. Thomas Massey is one of those people that people are going to, it would have been different, I think, if Donald Trump would have said this about Mitch McConnell, but Mitch isn't running anymore anyway. I think it would have been different, but people love Thomas Massey. That's the thing. So he's responding to the comment that Donald Trump said here, because now Donald Trump is trolling Massey, and he's saying Congressman, in quotes there, Thomas Massey, because he wants him gone. This post here from Tom Woods has received over 25,000 likes. People are not with Trump on this, but why? Why is he doing this, right? Don't forget what Thomas Massey showed you. Representative Thomas Massey notices the Israel flag in Representative Scott's office. See, look. And he has the emoji, the question emoji, because he wants to know again, why do you have this here? That's Rick Scott. Why do you have this here? Where's the American flag? See, this is the thing that drives me crazy, right? Where's the American flag? This ain't Israel. Why can't you have that? See? So yeah, Thomas Massey has been outspoken about this, right? So here's another thing. Thomas Massey doesn't take any money from AIPAC. Dun, dun, dun. Thomas Massey doesn't take any money from the Israeli lobby. None whatsoever. And I also found something very interesting. I thought it was kind of weird that Thomas Massey's wife passed away. Seemed like right after he did that interview with Tucker Carlson when he told people what AIPAC was doing. Now, I don't know the whole backstory, and it's not my business to get into that, but I just found that to be kind of weird, in my opinion.
By the way, everybody but me has an AIPAC person.
What does that mean, an AIPAC person?
It's like your babysitter, your AIPAC babysitter.
Why have I never heard this before?
It doesn't benefit anybody. Why would they want to tell their constituents that they've basically got a buddy system with somebody who's representing a foreign country? I've had 4 members of Congress say, I'll talk to my AIPAC person. And it's literally what we call them, my AIPAC guy. And
every member has something like this?
I don't know how it works on the Democrat side, but that's how it works on the Republican side. Oh, has the congressman been to Israel? They pay for trips for congressmen and their spouses to go to Israel. And when they come to DC, you go have lunch with them. And they've got your cell number and you have conversations with them. I mean, I'm not the only Republican who hasn't taken the AIPAC trip to Israel, but I'm probably one of a dozen that hasn't taken that trip. And the other ones just haven't got around to it.
You seen any other country do anything like this? Like
no.
Russia, anyone have a Putin guy that they talk to?
Not only do they not have a Putin guy, look, they don't have a Britain guy. They don't have an Australian guy. They don't have a Germany dude. Like, it's the only country that does this.
Idea of a foreign government playing in our political campaigns openly.
Openly in that they're showing you they're doing it, but opaquely in that you can't track it. I guarantee there's some spreadsheet at AIPAC where the AIPAC dude who's matched up with the congressman is there, and then all the congressman's votes on the issue.
So
why?
This is the problem. Thomas Massey told the Inside Politics about AIPAC. Thomas Massey doesn't take money from AIPAC or the Israeli lobby. Thomas Massey explained this to Tucker Carlson. Thomas Massey has been very vocal about, I'm not voting for it. Too much spending, too much this. They came to me, they tried to get me and tried to win me over. And no, I'm not doing this. Thomas Massey peeped the game. And so now He's a problem because he's the one person in Congress that can hold up money to Israel and has held up money to Israel and has held up money to Ukraine. So now Donald Trump wants him gone. Does this sound familiar? Now you see this is happening in both parties now, not just the Democratic Party. It's a bad idea. It's a bad plan. I don't know what he thinks is going to come from this, but there has been a lot of pushback against Donald Trump for wanting to primary someone against Thomas Massie. Thomas Massie isn't just some old hunky-dory person, and he may not get into all this sometimes, but Thomas Massie went to MIT. Okay? Thomas Massie isn't stupid. He went to MIT. He's a freaking engineer. This guy's very smart. Very smart. So in his mind, he's running through numbers. Now, I don't agree with him on, I'd probably say, a lot of his politics, but I agree with him on not funding these wars. Everyone needs to pay attention what's happening, man, how they're trying to get rid of these people. I've been trying to tell you guys, and he's right when he says this is why people don't stand up, because this is what happens to you. He's right. That's why they don't stand up, because it's like, oh, okay, you're not willing to go along with the team. Oh, okay, we're going to put you on the bench. No. We're going to kick you out of here. We're going to kick you off the team. That's what they do. And now they're trying to do it to him. So here's a push as well. Everybody needs to speak out against this, regardless if you're a Democrat, a Republican, Green Party. Everybody should speak out against it. This is insane. This is being done to help Israel. This isn't being done to help America. This isn't being done to help the working class. This is being done to help Israel. And that is not America first. And if you feel as though that Donald Trump is not putting Americans first, and that's what he said he was going to do, you guys speak out against this stuff. Here's the thing. You guys are not in Congress. I'm not in Congress. Okay? So we don't have a seat or anything like that or whatever. Man, bump that. Hold them accountable. So I would sincerely hope that everybody would speak out against what they're trying to do. I had criticism of the squad, but I still spoke out when AIPAC came in and said, okay, Wesley Bell, we're going to get you to take her place because you'll take money from us. It's wrong. Period. Crazy stuff, guys. I'm telling you, I'm trying to tell you, it's some crazy stuff that's going on. Okay. All right. Let's get to the comments and then we'll get to our final story, ladies and gentlemen. I think we did pretty good with time, right? Yeah, we're going to the sixth story. Thank you, Pink Diamond. NYPD is an extension of the IDF. Israeli President Herzog had official meeting with NYPD staff in Adams in July 2023. It was disturbing. I bet it was. Thank you, Marlon. Reparations would save the economy and provide affordable housing. Make too much sense, though. It really would. You would see a lot of people buy homes then, too. It would go right back into the economy. Thank you, China. Sabby, get out of here. Just let the accent happen. Sometimes it comes out. It's really funny. Vietnam, thank you for gifting, or Vietnam, thank you for gifting one Sabby membership. Thank you. Cool Blue, thanks. If people don't think and feel their lives are improving, Trump's Republican Party may lose the U.S. House with midterm elections in 2026. There you go. Thank you, Courtney. I know I'm late and off subject, but it's coming back to me. Go, Sabby. It's your birthday. We're going to party like it's your birthday. Yeah. You guys know Celine. I know some of you out there know about Celine Dion. Okay. I see some of you out there hiding and everything. You know, you're trying to be shy and a little hush, but I know you know some Celine Dion songs. I know you was bumping that back in the day. Come on. All right. Last story, ladies and gentlemen. So this one, kudos to BRIE for taking the time to get this done. Brianna Joy Gray interviewed Jamal Bowman. Jamal Bowman, as you know, lost his seat in Congress because of big money interests. AIPAC, they wanted him out. And he has had an interview with Ronnie Akalik as well after he lost his seat. This discussion with Brianna Joy Gray, for one, I applaud her for this discussion, because what I liked about this is that she didn't just focus on the problems and here's what you did not do. She also focused on solutions. And I think that is important. Oftentimes we hear these conversations and there's no solution talk. It's just, this is what I don't like. This is what you did, yada, 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 that type of thing. And I think that was a really positive thing, because there's some moments during this interview where I feel like if Jamal Bowman was still in Congress, number one, this interview probably wouldn't have happened. But let's say it did and he was still in Congress, I think there's some parts where he probably wouldn't have been comfortable answering. But now he can, right? So BRIE starts off with force the vote. It's all coming back to me now, ladies and gentlemen. You remember this moment. She starts off with force the vote. Why didn't they do it? Let's dive in.
And subsequent to force the vote not being taken up by you all, we went ahead and organized Medicare for All rallies all across the country, which I went to one in Portland. They were all over the country, but in Portland, Maine. And no squad members, I think maybe Cori Bush showed up to one of them. But with the exception of that, no squad members showed up to any of them. And this is all in the context of a global pandemic where 15 million people have just lost their health insurance because they're getting laid off. And this was primarily about, a central demand was a vote on Medicare for All, an issue which seemed to be dead as a consequence of the Bernie campaign dying. And so when you say there wasn't organizing, that kind of rubs me the wrong way, because there was.
I'm not saying that.
We're going to pause here for a second. That rubbed me the wrong way too. BRIE was a part of Force the Vote. I was not. This show didn't exist during Force the Vote, but I did watch all of the Force the Vote's discussions and town hall and all that type of thing. I thought it was the right strategy at the time, and I still think that was the right strategy. But I was a part of the Medicare for All marches. I was the MC for the Boston March. In fact, that is where I met Eric, my producer. I met him at the Boston March. He wasn't my producer at the time, but later became my producer. And I thought it was a very positive moment for the left, for progressivism. There were Medicare for All marches in over 50 cities across the country. This was around about, I think, 3 years ago. It was under the Biden-Harris administration. And what it was activists that supported the Bernie campaign, continuing that conversation of Medicare for All and talking about, like, look, we need a change here, right? So these activists went out of their way to organize these marches, which I thought they did an amazing job. And it was kind of sad to see that only one member of the squad attended, and that was Cori Bush. Cori Bush went to the DC March, and everybody else just did not respond. And that includes people in my state too, by the way. That includes Ayanna Pressley. That includes Ed Markey. That includes Elizabeth Warren. Like, when I tell you guys that we tried, when I tell you guys that we reached out to the people, the frustration that you hear from me today, you have to understand that was after years of trying. So it wasn't like we didn't try to work with the Congress members to get these things done. We did try. Same thing what BRIE is saying here. We did try. So when Bowman says, like, we don't organize, we did organize. We've organized multiple times on the outside. But the Congress members, the ones that support progressive policies, you guys were the ones that did not participate. And if you couldn't make it, fine, but you didn't even tweet about it. Like, all of them pretended like this didn't happen. How do you ignore Medicare for All marches in over 50 cities across the country? How do you just ignore that when you ran on it? So that one for me, I think, was very hurtful. And there were doctors that were speaking at these marches in some of these cities. There were prominent speakers. Susan Sarandon spoke at the Medicare for All march in New York City. Let's go on.
Wasn't organizing. I'm saying, like, so all of that you just laid out, that's excellent. That's great, right?
what I'm saying, we mentioned a plan. So what's our objective here, right? So the objective at that moment was to force a vote on Medicare for all, right? Let's say that was the objective, among other things, but let's say that was the objective. That was the main objective at that moment. That didn't happen, okay? So if we all, so is that the end of it? Number one, like, are we still in this fight trying to do things together? Or are we, you know, like what does that mean, right? That like we're just done after that?
Carly, Force the Vote was in the call for it was in 2020 during the pandemic, but the actual town hall was in 2021. Yeah.
Are we really trying to build, left power? And if the best way to build left power is, in my opinion, is to like get in a room and figure things out, then that's what we got to do. We got to get in a room and figure things out. If not you, but if the adversarial left is focused on being adversarial, then I'm not messing with me. Jamal Bowman's not messing with you. I'll give you one example.
We're being adversarial, to be clear, to the Democratic Party that ousted you from your seat. The goal was not to be adversarial to you. It was to be adversarial to your enemy. And instead of aligning with us, you ended up aligning with a party that ultimately kicked you out of Congress for standing up against the genocide.
At that time, the adversarial left was adversarial towards specific people, like at that time. And so, like, listen, you want to be if that's what you want, if that's your way of doing that thing, that's what you do. I'm just telling you how it's going to be received by someone like me. I can't speak for nobody else, but someone like me. Like, so you want to come, like someone came to one of my town halls to call me out about something like Ukraine war or something.
That was Jose Vega. He's talking about when Jose Vega confronted him at the town hall. But when you say the adversarial left was against individual people, why were people adversarial, right? It's because after we canvassed for you, after we donated to you and all these types of things, and you got into Congress, you guys completely forgot about the left. You guys were just gone. And so it's not that people weren't reaching out, people were. And after people reach out and they're like, whoa, what happened to all of them? They like totally changed. Yeah. People are going to be angry because you ran on it. You see, I'm not going to be angry towards, give me someone that's flaky and fake. Oh, Elizabeth Warren. I'm not going to have that same type of energy towards her because she didn't really run on it. And she flip-flopped and was like, yeah, we need it. And then she flopped off and all that kind of stuff. You know, I'm not going to be that way. I'm not going to have that attitude towards Joe Biden because he didn't run on it, but you guys ran on it. So you, of all people, you guys should have at least come to the town hall. Like, that was the thing to me that was just weird.
Right. And he's like, you know, he just starts yelling, whatever. And I'm like, yo, okay, give me a second. Let me finish here. Let's talk and let's build and let's get this thing figured out. But if we're just going to be like, if everything is just a protest and you want to be adversarial and you want to be right, not you, but in general, people out there just want to make a good point or win like an argument or be loud and mad, nasty, and disrespectful like Jimmy was at that time. Like Jimmy was the face of that shit at that time. And right. So like
who made that the case?
Hold on.
And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. So now we see what the real problem was. Like I always said that, oh, they didn't want to piss off Nancy Pelosi. And I think we all knew that one, right? They didn't want to push back against her. But here's the other part of it. The problem that they had with Force the Vote was that Jimmy Dore was supposedly the face of it. But he's ignoring the fact that BRIE, Kyle, Crystal, Cornel West, Chris Hedges, Katie Halper, Joy, like there were a number of people that were a part of this, including people that had lost their families or they were in medical debt because of the healthcare system in this country. It was on Jimmy Dore's show because at that time, if I remember correctly, I believe he had the largest platform at that time. So they were trying to reach a lot of people. But all of those people that I mentioned were the face of Force the Vote. So you decided to hone in and focus on one person and you ignored all the rest of them. So this says a lot. So to me, it sounds like a lot of this was about personalities.
I don't know who made that the case. I have no idea.
Because again, there were dozens of us.
Real quick, hold on a second.
Yeah.
And I don't want to keep talking about this. There's many other things to talk about. It was like 4 years ago. But like Jimmy was the face of it. And Jimmy was wild, disgusting, nasty, and disrespectful. So if the leader of that thing is like that, why would I even mess with y'all or take y'all seriously?
Because it's a good idea. Because it's a good idea, Representative.
Jimmy's a fucking clown, yo. Like Jimmy was wilding that day.
So this tells me it's about optics. And my whole thing is that say, okay, you don't like him, whatever, it's fine. I really don't give a shit. You don't like him or whatever, but is the cause greater than the personality? Because that's how I looked at it. During that time, during a pandemic, when, people who did not have healthcare were in even more danger or had inadequate healthcare were in even more danger. That was the perfect time to call for Medicare for all, universal healthcare in this country, which other countries have. That was the perfect time to call for it. Plus, you ran on it. Again, I wouldn't feel this way if you didn't run on it. You don't see me saying these things about like other Democrats who didn't run on this. You don't hear me saying this to Jim Clyburn, right? So in Jamal Bowman's eyes, the personality was greater than the cause. Because I agree with what BRIE says here. You still should have participated. Now, I wouldn't have taken the approach that Jimmy took. I wouldn't have taken that approach. I don't approach people in that manner. But at the same time, that you guys had a narrow majority. We were in the middle of a pandemic, and that strategy comes directly from the DSA handbook. I just don't understand that. Why were you a member of DSA if you don't even agree with their strategies? Why? So that tells me that they let the personality stop them from fighting for the cause.
That back then. And so,
do you remember reaching out to me some months after the vote?
Yes.
Do you remember what you asked me on that call?
Vaguely. I remember the gist of it. I think I do.
I recall you asking me, okay, force the vote we didn't do it. What's next? Like, what's the next sort of idea that the left has? And I don't know if you remember, but I remember standing in the middle of the studio apartment that I was living in, basically still unemployed. I think we had just started this podcast from the Bernie campaign, and being really gobsmacked because it felt to me like what we were trying to convey, and why I might not have had the same tone or approach as Jimmy. I frankly respect his frustration, because the anger came from the realization that this could be the only opportunity in a generation for progressives, given that there's only like 6 or 7 of you, to actually be a stopgap, to be a point, to have real leverage in Congress. And the unwillingness to even talk about it as a possibility or entertain it. It wasn't like a light switch that went off and everyone was mad all of a sudden. The idea came out around like November, and the vote was in the first week of January. And so there were a couple of months of lobbying efforts. We did virtual town hall. Everything was virtual, obviously.
I got you, man.
Virtual
Listen,
town halls.
I got you. That's
we had
good.
people on,
fair.
parents who had lost their kid to suicide because they had lost their prescriptions and gone off their meds.
Yes.
We had people who were blind and differently abled in all sorts of ways coming out to talk about how important this issue was to them. And we couldn't even get, Cornel West again, Chris Hedges came on these shows, but we couldn't get any Congress members. to show up on these shows and listen to us. And so that's all to say.
So why do you think that is though? So first of all, you mentioned the call. I reached out to you, right? And
months after, yeah.
And the crux of it was like, okay, what do we do next?
So now we know he's the person that did that. BRIE had mentioned this when she was still on Rising, that there was a member, of Congress that did reach out to her, but she didn't say the name. Now we know that BOWMAN was that person that reached out after Force the Vote, asking, okay, what's next? And it's like, you're asking like, what's next? But there's no step to the plan of Force the Vote was to force the vote against Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House for Medicare for All, to bring it to the floor for a vote. And for the Democrat congressman who voted against Medicare for All during a pandemic, which was definitely going to be on everyone's eyes, especially since a lot of people were at home, those people were to be primaried and to get them out of there. That was the plan. So when they decided not to force the vote, there was no more plan. That's what I don't understand.
Because I recognize that,
I was like, there's nothing.
No, but there
that was our moment.
No, but there is something else, and there has to be something else, and we need to figure out what that something else is. And the fact that no members of Congress, for whatever reason, didn't engage, I mean, yeah, we could just say the members of Congress were effed up or fraudulent, something wrong with them, but there also needs to be reflection of like, okay, like how could we have gone about it differently? Maybe that could be part of the conversation as well.
I think that they were scared. I think they were scared of Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah.
So there you go. Yeah, they were afraid of Nancy Pelosi. And I'm glad that BRIE said that, because even if they would have gone about it differently, let's say they would have behaved in a different way, at the end of the day, that doesn't matter, because they were still afraid of Nancy Pelosi. Let's go to another part here, right? So I feel like there were a lot of excuses that are just kind of made. This discussion here where she gets into the Green Party, and I was really surprised at his response on this one. What I want people to understand as well is that, again, BRIE's not just here to point fingers and say, this is where you messed up. She's also presenting solutions and a path forward in this conversation, which is what I like to see. I don't like these interviews where it's like people just, you did this, and that, and this is just a drag down fight, and you end up nowhere in the end, right? But that's why I felt like this was a constructive interview. I think what Jamal Bowman needs to understand, though, is this. The same way that you say the adversarial left needs to deal with the way that they approach some of these things. You as a Congress member at that time, you need to be able to hold yourself accountable. And what I noticed during this conversation is that he didn't really want to take any accountability for his actions or lack of action. And as a politician, that comes with the job. Hell, that comes with a lot of jobs, even the jobs that you have at home, wherever you guys work at. If you work at Taco Bell and you're working at the drive-thru and you give somebody the wrong food and they turn around and come back and knock on the door and say, you gave me the wrong food. Are you going to point fingers at the customer and blame them for their behavior and attitude? Or are you going to take responsibility for the fact that you did mess up and you gave them the wrong food? So this is with any job. And I feel like he did not want to take any accountability. So she brings up this idea here about the Green Party. Listen to this, guys.
Fulfilling prophecy.
So you think the answer right now is building up the Green Party? You think that's the way to go?
Look, if you have another party, if you prefer PSL, if you want to start a whole new workers' party, I think many people had hoped that at the end of
it's not the Working Families Party.
Well, historically, the reality is the Working Families Party has been the Democratic Party, co-opted by the Democratic Party and not independent in the least. And so if there were a genuinely independent party,
the Working Families Party
that would be one thing. Yeah.
Yeah, the WFP, to your point, were outspoken against the genocide in Gaza. Right? Yes.
And what does it mean? What does it mean to be outspoken against the genocide in Gaza, but ultimately lend your endorsement to the candidates without whom the genocide could not have happened?
Got it. So WFP could have went the Green Party route as well. Got it. Okay.
So that's an interesting point. I'm glad that she brought that up. I thought that was really brave of BRIE to bring that up, because I thought he was going to respond a little bit differently to this, but he didn't. So I was kind of surprised by that. But here's the thing. The Working Families Party has been known to, in the past, endorse establishment corporate Dem candidates over progressive grassroots candidates. The Working Families Party cannot be trusted. I disagree with Jamal Bowman on this heavily. Imani Oakley, who has been on the show before, she ran as a progressive for Congress in New Jersey. She's based in New Jersey. This happened to her. She ran through the Working Families Party, which is basically like an extension of the Democratic Party, but they're supposed to be different, but they're really not. And she ran through that party, and the Working Families Party endorsed the corporate Democrat over her, and she's not alone. It has happened multiple times before to other progressive candidates. That's why BRIE is saying what she's saying.
Maybe. I mean, I guess that's fair. I guess no one, I mean, I can't speak for anyone else, but I didn't see the Green Party having a shot at all. And like I said, I really felt strongly that Kamala Harris, we could have moved her on this issue.
Why do you feel that way? Why do you feel that way? Because she seemed very clear. Biden dropped out. He names Kamala as the replacement nominee. There were I think 2 or 3 weeks where she didn't make any public statements or appearances.
Yeah, I mean,
the first thing that she says, the first statement that she puts out was to affirm that she wasn't going to break with Biden on Gaza policy.
Yeah. She also, at the very least, mentioned Palestine and Palestinians in many of her speeches, which other Dems haven't done.
But that doesn't matter. You can mention whatever you want. If we want to know what you're going to do, we just look at the funding. And Jamal Bowman knows this because he talks about this in the interview, just how corrupt these parties are about the big money interests. So Kamala Harris was heavily taking money from the Israeli lobby, which is not like she disputed. She said multiple times that she would never, ever waiver her support for Israel. She refused to do the arms embargo. She wouldn't even go to Dearborn, Michigan to meet with people there, which is a population that she needed in order to win Michigan. How do you let Trump go to Dearborn, but you don't go? It's things like that. So I don't believe that. I never believed that, we can move her on this. No, you can't. If you want to know how people are going to be moved, just look at their funding. AIPAC doesn't give you money so that you can vote against them. They give you money so that you are going to work in their favor to help the state of Israel. Most of these politicians in Congress right now, they're doing more to help Israel than they are to help us here in the United States. That ain't right. So you got to call these things out. So no, I don't believe that she would have changed. She made it very clear that she wouldn't. And also her funding said that she wouldn't. Kamala Harris has been a Zionist for a long time. And what people really do have to understand is that she was recruited by the Clintons. Before Kamala Harris ran for Senate, where do you think that came from? Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton recruited Kamala Harris. Yes, they have people that they recruit to bring in. She was supposed to be their next darling, right? She was supposed to accomplish what Hillary Clinton could not. You think they're going to recruit somebody who's going to be pro-Palestinian? No, come on, man. Come on, man.
I mean, this
what
goes
does that
back.
do? But if she's saying she's not going to break from Biden on this policy, right, and has given many opportunities to modify that statement,
So what did
chooses to double down.
What many did, like me and others, was trying to push her, try to move her on that. What I was going to say was, so you have this goes back to what we started the conversation. The political system is controlled by special interests, AIPAC included, and pro-Israel lobby included.
So if you know that, then you know that you weren't going to be able to move Kamala on the issue. Do you see how these things just kind of reveal themselves? If you know that that's what's controlling everything, and Kamala is taking that money, then you know she's not going to be moved on that issue.
So everybody, all these people that we see, they're pretty much puppets. They're not even themselves, right? Mm-hmm. And so, that's why that's why the system is as effed up as it is.
I agree
and that's why we got to change it.
Isn't that a reason to not believe Kamala Harris can be moved? I don't doubt, frankly. I mean,
Kamala
I have some
Harris
doubts,
is so Kamala Harris as a person, I would hope, does not support genocide in Gaza.
right, but that's exactly what I was about to say. And as a
But
person,
the party, we keep talking about the part, like the party is the party. The party is part of a system that is upholding what it upholds. But we have people within that party who are trying to, who are trying to figure it out.
If the people are controlled in the way that I think you've accurately described them as being controlled, isn't that an argument that no matter how good they are of a person on the inside or how much they want to behave differently, that they're ultimately going to be unmovable because the party system and the power system is stronger than they are? And that when you step out of line the way that you did, there are punishments.
Right.
Well, then there are members of the party willing to accept those punishments, like me and Corey. And there are members of the party. And there are members
what is
of
the conclusion about what that means about the ability to work within the party? Right. Like if you stand your ground and are ethical the way you were, you get kicked out of the party, or you get punished the way
But what I'm saying,
so what does that do to move the party to the left if the party simply ousts everybody who would move it to the left?
You have you have Democrats in Congress, right? We've been talking about Democrats in Congress and what they didn't do. There are many things Democrats in Congress have done, right? Squad in particular. And so you're the Squad. Israel's an apartheid state. Israel's committing genocide. You're calling that shit out consistently, right? As you're doing that, people on the outside are engaging in movement building to demand a ceasefire or move things on ceasefire, right? That's a perfect example to me of inside outside working together.
So why didn't that effort happen working together? Because the pro-Palestinian protests were bigger than the George Floyd protests. They were all over the world. With all those people, why wasn't there that collaboration? When AOC was approached by protesters, she ran away. There was no collaboration. Like I said, he keeps saying there was no organizing. There was organizing for pro-Palestinian protests. There was organizing for George Floyd. There have been multiple organizing for Medicare for all, organizing for, force the vote. There were multiple times where people organized on the outside and you guys were nowhere to be found. It's like, where are you going? Nowhere. You guys were nowhere to be found. So just to pretend like these things didn't happen, at that point, it's on you. At that point, it's on the Congress members to come and join us. It's not like we have access to Congress members. It's not like we just pick up the phone and say, hello. It doesn't work that way, right? So if you see all these people out there marching and stuff, we already made the call. People already have contacted your offices. Then it is on you. It is not on us. The next part here that I want to get to, I also think is important. This is about building something different. And listen to this. This is pretty interesting.
As members to continue to stand right on the issues with the right values, if there's punishment, whatever, the Democrat Party continues to do this quote unquote punishment, then the opportunity for a third party to get stronger, the opportunity for movements on the outside to get stronger is realized, because now it's like, okay, we have to build something different because the party's just messed up. And so that is part of a plan, but not enough of a plan, because we got to think 50 years from now, 20 years from now, 10 years from now, 5 years from now. And so what I'm saying is, and hopefully you're getting it from this conversation, I don't spend my time, trying to move the party or being a champion for the party or thinking about the party. It's about serving the people. And how do we do that?
But that's not true. Because, and I say that's not true because Jamal Bowman, you supported Joe Biden when you said publicly during that town meeting in DC that Colin went to and recorded, you said, we got to drag this guy across the finish line. You knew that Joe Biden was not in the right frame of mind to continue serving, another term of presidency, but you said that we got to support him. So in that instance, you were doing what you wanted to do for the party. Like that was a party thing. That wasn't to serve the people. So see, people may not even remember all these things, but I remember all of these things. And this is what you got to point to. It's like there were multiple times you could have broken away. You didn't have to support Biden at all. You just said like absolutely nothing about it. But when all the squad members gathered in DC and they had that meeting and they said, we got to drag Joe Biden across, that was you doing what was best for the party, not what was best for the people.
That's generally speaking. And then the other thing I said, if anyone wants to work with me, like let's work together and let's get stuff done. If your idea, not yours, but anyone else's idea of working with me is like talking shit about me, then you could go ahead with that bullshit.
So,
okay. So I'm gonna table that last part. The plan, I would argue, yes, I'm so glad to hear you say that you're really interested in continuing to engage politically and work on strategies going forward. When you called me all those years ago, back in 2021, 2022, whenever it was, and asked me what was next, it did not feel like there was much in the transom. In this moment, if you're asking,
much in the what?
Much in the transom, much in the pipeline. There's no plan. Mm-hmm. That being said, we're in the middle of Biden administration. There was absolutely no appetite for being adversarial to the Biden administration among elected Democrats, or frankly, among people in the streets. He had effectively suppressed agitation around Black Lives Matter because, in my view, he made it.
What do you mean? Like everything you just said, that's not true. There was no.
You don't think that Biden effectively? You don't think there was? Wait, you think there was an appetite for like political agitation under the Biden administration from Dems?
Like we was
under the Biden administration.
We was criticizing Biden like all the time, like on a consistent basis. Like
about what in particular? You mean Build Back Better stuff and how it got bifurcated and holding the line
a million different things. I mean, you're saying that like during the Biden administration, like he squashed Black Lives Matter. Like what are we talking about?
Well, yeah. Well, specifically, I mean that during 2020 he ran on funding the police harder. And that the argument that got made, there was a very rapid shift, as I observed it, in 2020, from a movement that emerged right as the primary season was ending, and where there was a lot of popular enthusiasm around police reform, including a poll that showed just after that Minneapolis police station was burned down, the majority of the public approved of arson of a police station. But as Joe Biden became the nominee, started running on tough on crime, funding the police harder, a binary emerged where defund the police as a quote unquote slogan was constantly talked about on liberal platforms as being harmful to the Biden effort to defeat Trump. And that if you wanted to defeat Trump, you couldn't engage in some of the lefty sloganeering and the crazy things that were coming out of the left, including the defund movement and the Black Lives Matter movement. And as a consequence, the appetite around it diminished, I think, more so than it would have if there had been a Trump administration. And now we're seeing, again, a lot of people more willing to speak out about Palestine, for example, because now it's Trump's genocide as opposed to being Biden's genocide. That's what I mean. As relative, it's a relative metric. There's historically and recurrently more appetite for protest under a Republican administration because many Democrats are reluctant to criticize Democratic leadership when they're the ones that are owning a given problem.
That's true. And much more of them should have been more vocal about the genocide under Biden's administration. It's interesting. Some of them want to speak now, but they were very quiet under Biden when he was in office.
Okay.
That's all I mean by that.
Got it.
Sorry, so the plan going forward, I do think that there is utility. There was utility in people like yourselves being within the Democratic Party. So now we can see, we have proof positive for how antagonistic the Democratic Party is willing to be to its own members who are to their left. Similarly, I don't think Bernie Sanders running for president twice or me working on the 2020 campaign was a waste of my life. Sometimes I joke that he took my mid-30s, but like, I don't actually think it was a waste of time because, but for those examples, we wouldn't be able to say so confidently that the Democratic Party is willing to be more hostile to the left than they are to Trump and rising fascism and all the things that they have been warning about for all of these years. So I don't think that, I think that you're the role you and Cori Bush and the others have played is very instructive. The question is what you do with that energy now. Do you say I was treated so badly and disrespected in these ways, and yet I'm going to come back and sort of manufacture consent for this party year after year, tell people to vote blue no matter who for the lesser of two evils, et cetera, et cetera? Or do you take the lesson from this, that the reason that we're in the situation right now with Donald Trump is because the Democratic Party chose to align with Zionism, with corporatism, with all of these interest groups that are against the American people. And as a consequence, there's a void. And Donald Trump and his faux populism was willing to fill the void. And if you want to prevent fascism from rising, you have to fill the void with real populism, which is not going to be found within the Democratic Party for all of the reasons of industry capture that you've described so well. And to me, that means telling your audience, telling your people that you have to contribute to build alternative party structures and not do what I think Bernie Sanders ultimately did, was just to say, I've got this huge movement of people, but I'm going to feed them back into the Democratic Party instead of taking that as an opportunity to do a dirty break.
Yeah, I agree with that mostly. I mean, that's why, I'm doing my own thing right now. You know what I'm saying? We just launched a PAC called Build to Win. Go to buildtowin.org to learn more. And the point there is year-round community organizing, year-round digital organizing, year-round engagement with working class communities of color, Black, Asian, Arab, Latino, to mobilize 5 million voters to impact the next presidential election and hundreds of thousands of voters in between now and then to impact local election. I mean, we have to work with the people, listen to the people, and work in empowering the people at a local level. And so for me, that's Yonkers, that's the Bronx, that's Mount Vernon, that's New Rochelle, that's places in New York State that continue to be ignored. That's making sure people are engaged in their school boards and their city council and their town council and their village trustee, all of it. Like, we need people to be inspired to take back our democracy. And so that is my work. That's not my work as a Democrat. That's my work as Jamal Bowman.
So do you see how people are moving back towards what you can do on the local level? And I've said this over and over again, like, guys, a lot of the transformation that we want and that has been happening for the most part has been happening on the local level. On the local level, the progressive policies have passed in some of the states, not on the national level. And people are learning. That's what Jamal Bowman's saying here. He's redirecting that energy back to the local level. Listen to this part here about collaborating with the Green Party.
There's going to be a rally. I think this one is also socialist alternative with the Green Party, Jill Stein, Butch Ware, who is running for governor of California as well, to do another one of these organizing drives. They had one last weekend or the weekend before as well. They have been hitting the ground running, desperate to try to continue to hold on to the interest, especially among Muslim and Arab American communities, and growing something separate apart from the Democratic Party, which has overseen the mass murder of their families, and has been so plainly disrespectful to them and their interests. There is real energy out there that they've identified, and they've been working overtime trying to make something of it. But they have done that while being completely and totally ignored by progressives within the Democratic Party who were once in the Democratic Party, right? There was some frustration. I'm sure it was probably just random timing, but that their last big event out in Washington State was kind of stepped on by Bernie announcing his oligarchy tour. And I think Bernie's oligarchy tour is great, except for that ultimately he is making a case against oligarchy that very much implicates the Democratic Party without really being transparent about the fact that he's whipping votes back for the Democratic Party, right?
Right. Bernie's oligarchy tour is to help the Democratic Party. It's like, how are you going to tell people to fight back against the oligarchy, and the Democratic Party also supports oligarchy, right? But that's what that's all about. The point that I think BRIE is making is that what Jill Stein and Shama Sawant are doing is outside of the two-party system, right? So what I've noticed with a lot of the Congress members or former Congress members is that their idea of organizing is through the Democratic Party. When you bring up other examples of organizing that we've done, like Medicare for All marches, pro-Palestine, like et cetera, even Abandon Harris, which had concrete demands, and the Uncommitted movement also had concrete demands, they don't really see that as organizing. Their idea of organizing is through the Democratic Party. And there lies the problem. Because if it's really about helping the people and doing what works for the people, it wouldn't have to happen through a political party. When I do mutual aid, it's not through a political party. I'm not a politician. When I started organizing, when I was younger, that wasn't through a political party. When I did Habitat for Humanity, that wasn't through a political party. How did it become this way? Think about these things, guys. When you have done volunteer work or anything like that, was that through a political party? Most of the time, not. No. So that's the point that BRIE's trying to bring up here. They're building something active over there. They're organizing out there on the ground outside of the two-party system. So when you say that the adversarial left is not organizing, they are organizing. You're just not a part of it, which has been the case since they got into Congress. That's the point that BRIE's making.
And that same tour and that same effort and all that attention that he's getting across the country could be used to inform people that they have different kinds of political choices, right? Additional political choices outside of the two parties.
I mean, so why aren't people like, why? I mean, you said there's energy out there, right? And the Green Party's doing the work, and Jill Stein, and they're doing what they're doing. I mean, so that's good. Like, if it's landing and it's motivating, it's inspiring, then the people will get involved, and then it will grow, and then it'll become powerful, and then it will do what it got to do. Well, and so that's just what it is.
Not exactly, Representative, because as you witnessed firsthand, the Democratic Party goes through incredible lengths to use their lawyers to keep the Green Party off the ballot. The corporate media won't give them any attention, won't have them all on their shows. And people like you who do have more of a platform than they do, or certainly Bernie Sanders, who has an enormous platform, who can go on cable shows, et cetera, could exponentially increase people's public awareness that there is even anything outside of the two-party system. The Green Party or any third party's biggest obstacle is letting people know that they exist. When I have chats in the backs of Ubers with people who are very frustrated with the two-party system, when I mention that there's something other than Republican and Democrats, they're shocked and they want to know more. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I would love a world where the squad was regularly doing the wonderful live streams that AOC is able to command so much attention for. I would love it if instead of using that platform to attack Jill Stein, which she did in the lead up to the election, that it was to say, hey, it's a good thing that in our democracy we have other choices, especially since the guy I've chosen to endorse or the woman that I've chosen to endorse is committing a genocide that I say I don't support, but I'm going to tell you to vote for.
And that divided the left. I don't think a lot of people really realize that, but when AOC decided to take the position that she did to make those videos smearing Jill Stein and all this kind of stuff, that didn't help Kamala Harris win. And that actually split the left, because there were some people that were on the fence at that time and they were trying to decide, like, well, what do? I don't want to support, genocide, but at the same time, I don't want Donald Trump. I think he might be worse. There were a number of people that brought up these, the feelings that they had at that time. And then when they saw that from AOC, that kind of made their mind up for them in the other direction, where they were like, well, forget that. I'm going to support Jill Stein because what are you doing? Like, what is happening here? See, that's another one of those things where what AOC did there, that divided the left. That wasn't let's work together. That wasn't let's organize. That wasn't let's try to collaborate and build something. That was none of that. And that full-on attack mode How did that help Kamala Harris win? Kamala Harris still lost. And actually thinking back on it, had AOC had given the response that BRIE just mentioned here, then maybe people who were conflicted and didn't know where to turn to at that point in time, maybe they would have taken a little bit more time to think about it. Who knows? Maybe some of those people would have supported Kamala. But the position that AOC took for those people who did not have their mind made up at that time, that kind of sent them over to Jill Stein. So that wasn't, trying to work together. Listen to what Jamal says here.
You see the dissonance there.
I mean, I do, but I mean, when I ran my race, people voted for me because and gave me money and supported me not because I was in the Democratic Party, because they wanted to support me as a strong candidate. And so, yeah, man, it's and I didn't win my race because AOC endorsed me or some that all came late. I had you gotta work and you gotta grind. And so I don't know Jill Stein, and I don't know the brother.
Would you like to meet her? Would you like me to do an introduction? Because I'm sure she'd love to talk to you.
I've met her, but I don't know her, and I don't know the brother. What's the brother's name?
Butch Ware. I would love to introduce you as well.
I don't know him, but he seems like a sharp brother. When I've heard him speak. And yeah, we could totally meet. Absolutely, we could have a conversation. But is the Green Party the answer? Maybe. Is it something else that we haven't thought about yet? Maybe. Most likely, actually. Is it Working Families Party? I trust, Maurice is the leader of the Working Families Party, and I like a lot of what they do. And so my central point in all of this, couple things. One, there are fighters in the Democratic Party, and they should get more love than they do, because they don't get enough, in my opinion. Two, if we want to put together a plan and talk through and think through what the future of democracy and the future of human rights is going to look like, let's do that. Because I think, going to my third point, I don't think just constantly rehashing the past or, talking about how bad something is or whatever I don't think that's enough. I think we got to do the knowledge. There's a lot I personally have to learn, continue to learn and grow.
Okay, and he goes on there for quite a bit, but basically what you gather there is that was BRIE sending or basically extending an olive branch. Would you like to have a discussion with Jill Stein and Butch Ware? I could make that happen. That's why I appreciated this conversation, because it wasn't just you did this wrong or you didn't do that. It was, let's talk about possible solutions and moving forward, whether you agree with those solutions or not. But notice how path forward, right? We should be building up she said we should be building up the Green Party. That's her solution. And this is what I was saying. A lot of times people have these conversations and it's just, I didn't like you did this or you did that or I'm mad at this. Nah. But there's no path forward. And then what happens is that people see these things and people become, down or depressed and say, oh, there's just no hope. And so you may not agree with Jamal Bowman. You may not approve of what Jamal Bowman's doing or whatever. But I think the way that BRIE handled that was really good, because she basically what she did is she laid all the cards out on the table so that you can't say you don't know. You can't say you don't know what this group is doing. You can't say you don't know what that group is doing. Would you like to have a conversation with these people? Now, he could have easily said no. And this is what Bernie Sanders should have been doing. This oligarchy tour that Bernie Sanders is doing, he should have been collaborating with Jill Stein and Shama Sawant. That should have been one big thing. Why are we splitting people? And that's why I stand by what I said before when I said that Bernie Sanders and AOC exist to prevent a third party movement. I stand by that, because as long as they are there to keep ushering you back into the Democratic Party, no, you're not going to consider another alternative. That's something people really need to pay attention to. Now, this last part here, shout out to K-Study QB because he clipped this. Apparently, BRIE gave me a shout out here. But listen to this part. This is interesting about why they don't come on independent media.
I hope you're willing to come on this podcast and others when these ideas come up. It has been frustrating, I will say, as a member of independent left media, there was all of this hand-wringing about how the right has so much more media, but the right electeds support and affirm and lend credibility to independent right media by going on their shows. And
why would and again, I don't want to, it's not just squad members, but Democrats as well. Why am I going on shows that all they do is talk shit about us? Why would I do that?
Well, Ro Khanna regularly comes on the show.
Yeah,
Dean Phillips was willing to come on this show. Andrew Yang came on this show, and they all faced pushback the way that journalism is supposed to work.
Which is
Ro Khanna will go onto any show. Like he'll come on. Like Ro Khanna, Andrew Yang came on this show too. Like Ro Khanna will come on and all that type of stuff. But yeah, like if Ro Khanna can do it and he can face that type of heat, all the other Congress members should be able to do that too.
But if you're saying to me, Representative,
pushback
that you only want to go on.
No. Pushback is fine. Straight, nasty, disgusting disrespect. That's crazy. That's like, what are we doing?
Do you feel like I've treated you with nasty disrespect?
No, I reached out. I reached out to you.
And do you think that in the past I've been nasty and disrespectful to the squad members?
Listen,
discussed them on the show?
Listen, we're doing a lot of conflating here, and that's why we got to come back for another conversation, because I think you need to like decouple.
Or Katie Halper, or Sabby Sabs, or there's so many shows.
Yeah, there's so many shows. I'm down to go on all of those. I'm sure many other people are.
Wow, that was interesting. Well, I appreciate the shout out there that BRIE gave me and Katie. That's interesting. If Jamal Bowman came on this show, I wouldn't bring up Force the Vote because he's already talked a lot about that. I would dive into the marches for Medicare for All, though. And then also one of the things that I think really does need to be said is in that conversation, which I didn't play tonight, another thing that was mentioned was that Democrats lost the Latino vote. And I keep hearing that, and that's true. But what really needs to be discussed is that also the Democratic Party lost the Black vote. And they've been losing it over the years. It's continued to decrease since Barack Obama. It's not just the Latino community. And I think more people need to pay attention to those numbers as well, because the Democratic Party can't win without the Black vote. And I really do think at some point they thought that they could just replace the Black vote with the Latino vote. Nah, that ain't happen. That ain't happen because Latino Americans aren't all of them aren't Democrat. See, that's not good thinking. It's not good to assume that, right? So when we talk about 11 demands, this particular conversation, I think it hits home because one of the things that BRIE did is she didn't just talk about the problems. It's easy to talk about the problems. It's not easy to come up with a solution. And the solution that BRIE had to Jamal Bowman was we should be building up the Green Party. I think we need, multiple parties, but she said we should be building up the Green Party. That's what we should be putting our energy towards. I want to see more conversations like that. I want to see more conversations where people do come through with solution and not just here's what you did, here's what you didn't do. Goodbye. And that's why we bring up 11 demands. And Eric, my producer, came up with 11 demands, and it's the truth, right? His 11 demands: fix big money in politics and government, healthcare for all, a minimum standard of living for everyone in the wars, respond to the climate emergency, racial and criminal justice reform, reject censorship, immigration reform, an election system we can trust, revamp taxation and funding, and democratize the enterprise. This is something that Jamal Bowman should get around. I don't think he would be against any of these things. And that's the problem. This does not exist inside the Democratic Party. It's not going to exist inside the Democratic Party as long as they are corporate owned. So to BRIE's point, it is a waste of time to try to like figure out how you can move within the party when you already know the party's not going to change because they're owned. Thank you so much for that, Eric. You can find it here. Eric also has a Substack, 11demands.substack.com. And you can try to connect this to other stories as well, because MCDS, money, corruption, demand, solution. A lot of people can get to the money part and maybe even the corruption part, sometimes the demand part. But that's where it usually stops. People don't get to solutions. BRIE just gave the solutions. I think that's a good idea, a path forward. The Green Party does have most of the policies that the squad members ran on, and then some, and then they have more. Democratic Party doesn't. And that's just the reality of the situation. So I agree with BRIE that like, it is a waste of time. It's a waste of time right now. There's so much energy. I look back to when Justice Democrats first started. Imagine if, because they said they were going to come back to the third party. Everybody remember that? Justice Democrats started. They said they'll get to the third party part later. But it was still a part of the Justice Democratic principles. Imagine if they would have done both, both of those at the same time. When people say you don't have a viable third part, by now we probably would have had that. So, something to think about there, ladies and gentlemen. All right, guys, that is it for me tonight. The super chat. Sorry. Thank you, Marvin. NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch, Zio billionaire fam. Notori said there were nights when the wind was so cold that my body froze in bed if I just listened to it right outside the window. There were days when the sun was so cruel that all the tears turned to dust. Oh, I forget that part. Then all the tears turned to dust. Oh, she's saying, sorry guys. It's some of you like, what the hell? It's all coming back to me now. It's all coming back. It's all coming back to me now. There were voices of God, flashes of light. There were things we'd never do again, but then they'd always seem right. There were nights of endless pleasure. It was more than any. Oh, can't get to that part. Love's to love. Baby, baby, when you touch me like this, and when you hold me like that, it was gone with the wind, but it's all coming back to me. And back then, they used to take a slow song and they would make the remix. It would be like the club house mix. So it'd be like douche, 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 douche. All coming back, it's all coming back to me now. Douche, 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 douche. That was the jam back then, man. The remix was everything. Everything back then. Oh, they did it with that other Celine Dion song too. The My Heart Will Go On. Yeah. Thank you, Troy. There were not. I told you some of you were rocking Celine Dion back in the day. There were nights when the wind was so cold. Thanks, Andrew. This is a great show. You're knocking it out of the park tonight, Sabby. Thank you so much. Thanks, Louise. Corey showed up at the DC March. I didn't know about this. Organizers had reached out to our office. I supported her for both runs. Corey was a scam. I was so disappointed. Thanks, Courtney. Jimmy is going to tear his fake ass up tomorrow. Did I skip? Oh, sorry. Thank you, Aladdin, who gifted 1 Sabby membership. The Oracle says, Sabby, Jamal Bowman knows full well how he played his hand. That's why he gets agitated and defensive when the conversation goes in that direction. Thanks, Where's the Love? Bowman is just as nasty and sassy as Torres. Good riddance. New York says, what you said, Sabby, made this whole clip worth it. It makes better sense. Thank you, MJ. This man is Boo the Fool. How did he even get elected? And thank you, none of your business. He will tap dance again if elected to anything. Thank you, Jaden. I don't know why, but Brie looks and sounds like an elf. No shade. What does an elf sound like? JB says, also another club mix of Stranger in My... Oh, snap! There's a stranger in my house. Wild to figure out. There's no way you can be who you say you are. Douche, 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 douche. JB knows what's up. That's my club mix homie right there. That's my club mix homie. All right, let's get that comment on Rockfin. Thank you, Stephanie. Hi, Sabby. Do you know if there's a problem with Rockfin? I pay for a membership, but keep getting an error message on your show and the feed is cut off. Thanks. And a great show as always. I don't know. Rockfin is a worker co-op and sometimes there are issues, but I can look into that. I didn't know that before, but I'll have to check. And thank you, Goo. Jamal Bowman is one of those congressmen, who paid for the trip to Israel with Nancy and row Kana your boat. He did go to Israel. That was right. That was another big thing. That was another big one. Thank you for this. Sabs, who cares if the Dems lose the Black and Latino votes? Who cares if they don't win? Certainly not me. I don't. Bowman in any leadership in any org I support. He's clearly not ready. And thank you. We got that one. Thanks. Douche, 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 douche. They did this with so many songs, you guys. Like back in the day, I'm telling you, look up 90s club mixes and they would take like a slow song and then just make it a house mix. So it would be like, My Heart Will Go On, and then My Heart Will Go On, the house mix. Douche, 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 douche. You guys know what I'm talking about. EMF knows what's up. EMF knows. Nights when the wind was so cold. What happened to Celine Dion? Thank you, Wendy says, thank you for the song. You are welcome. No, seriously, what happened to Celine Dion? I don't hear about her anymore. She was killing in the 90s. If you love it the most, there's no reason. Oh, remember that song too? When you're ready to go, love comes to those who believe it. And that's the way it is. Everybody's going to listen to Celine Dion after the show. I didn't know that, Eric. What? I don't know what this means. Skylar, Celine suffers from statue syndrome or whatever it's called, but she's healed a lot and is back to singing. What does that mean? She has a debilitating illness. She can no longer sing. Wow. I did not know, you guys. Damn. Okay. Celine had a big performance at the Olympics. Okay. I didn't know this. I just noticed I hadn't heard from her in a long time. That's interesting. But Celine had some songs back then, man. I'm telling you, it's all coming back to me now. She also did the remake of that song, All By My... You guys remember the song? There was a song called All By Myself. And I think it's from the 70s originally. I can't remember the original singer. I think it was a dude, but she did a remake of All By Myself and it's so good. Like her version, in my opinion, is way better than the original, in my opinion. When I was young, I never needed anyone. Yeah, that was the jam. Okay, guys, seriously, it is past my time. Watch the new documentary. Okay, so apparently there's a documentary about, I'll have to watch that and see. There it is. Eric Carmen. Yes. I like Celine's version better because she hits those notes like boop. You know? Yeah. All right, I'll check it out. Check out the documentary. I am preparing for the All right, I'll Google it and look it up. All right, guys, that is it for me tonight. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.